everyone, it's Jai452, and here we are back again, going behind the mask. My special guest this week is none other than Dan Parthenon Williams.
Woo!
Hi,
Thanks for having me.
hi Dan, how are you?
I'm wonderful as always.
Awesome. So we're going to just jump right in,
Sure.
and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that might relate to cosplay because I know that you're a cosplayer.
Wow.
Um, Yeah. And we'll ask you some questions that are in relation to the show that you were on, the Who Wants to Be a Superhero season 2, as well as getting to know what you're up to nowadays, kind of thing. So, first off, I want to ask you, how old were you when you first started getting into the kind of creative side of things, like cosplaying or just being artsy in general?
Okay. So I have a really funny picture of me when I was in fourth grade as Tigra, as a Thundercat. So literally, I've been dressing up since fourth grade. So forever? Is that a timeline? I'm gonna go with forever. So I've always loved costumes and I've always loved stuff like that. And so, well, lately, probably in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I've started making a heck of a lot more costumes.
Mhm.
So I go to a lot of different conventions and I always have new costumes for those and stuff. So, but since fourth grade.
So, what was the inspiration behind Tiger? Because I remember the Thundercats as a kid, you know.
I love them. They were always my favorite cartoon, and so I was trying to convince my mom that I wanted to be that because I think the year before I went as Mandrake the Magician,
Mhm.
right, from Defenders of the Earth, like way long ago. And then Tiger was always my favorite because he was always my favorite kind of a person from the show. I loved his costume and stuff. But I'll send you the picture because it's really funny because it's like the worst costume. But my mom made it, and I actually still have bits and pieces of it. Like I still have the Tigra Thundercat logo, and I used to have the whip, but I just broke it the other day, like like a year ago. But yeah, so I used to have it since then. So
Awesome.
I'm semi a keeper of costumes, meaning I have a whole entire like warehouse of them. So it's kind of ridiculous.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, who or what inspires you to cosplay?
Hmm. Most of my cosplay comes from comic books.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's cartoons, and I'm trying to get more into anime. So I just started. I just finished Tiger and Bunny, which
Mhm.
was kind of cool, and I love the robot armor. And I don't actually have any yet, so I think robotic armor is going to be my next thing because
Ah.
I have to have some.
Um, what has been the most challenging costume that you've ever made?
Challenging costume wise, I probably would say my spinning Sharknado. Um, it took me, oh God, probably like 3 months to make. And it was a fully spinning tornado that went around me and that I could walk in. So, like, my feet poked at the bottom. The thing was free spinning and it actually spun pretty fast. And then I was inside of it getting eaten by a foam shark. And then on the outside of it was a whole tornado with little baby sharks spinning all around it. So, it was very entertaining, though.
You mentioned that your mum made your first costume for you, or did so under your instruction. Um,
Helped a little bit, so I've
how
always been fat.
how quickly did you get into like the actual making side of things? Was that something that your mother was kind of like saying, "Okay, Dan, you need to like leave me alone for 5 minutes to actually finish stitching this"?
You know
Um,
what? So my family's not really a sewer, but everybody's a crafter. Like my
mhm,
mom made a living as doing stained glass forever. My dad is a painter and a sculptor. So they've kind of always pushed me towards making my own stuff. So like my dad taught me woodworking, so I made like wooden staves for like different cosplay stuff, and then I would always have like free reign of his workshop. So
mhm.
then I could build anything, and he didn't really care. So he's just like, "Don't kill yourself," and I was like, "Got it." So then, like, right. I tried to make this like weird medallion one time, and I was thinking, right, I'm gonna make it out of solder because I didn't think about being lead first of all, right?
Mhm.
So I made this mold out of clay, and then I filled this whole entire thing with molten sod, like molten lead, right? And I was like, oh my God, it's great. So once it finally got done, I picked it up, and the thing was like 30 pounds or something crazy, and I was like, I can't wear this around my neck, and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? But it was like trial and error for most things. And then, geez, probably like, let's say after college, when I moved down to Orlando, Florida, I started getting more into actually sewing my own outfits because I didn't like matching people ever, and I hated normal stuff, like normal costumes you can just go buy off the rack. So I started, first of all, I started altering my own costumes. So I would go buy a piece, then I would come back and I would tear it apart and make it something different. And to this day, it's actually still one of my favorite things to do. But I can sew because I used to teach fashion design. So I pattern, like, you can't see it, but I have like an industrial serger and a top stitch. So they're pretty good.
So, you mentioned there that you get inspired by comic book characters. Is there any one particular comic book character that inspires you beyond any other?
Yeah, actually. My very first comic book I ever read was West Coast Avengers, and it was an annual. And my favorite character is still in that same book because it is Dr. Pym, Dr. Hank Pym, right? And this is actually when he was still just Dr. Hank Pym. So this was after he was Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket and stuff like that. Because he didn't want to be a superhero anymore. He wanted to be more of a scientist that was also a superhero. So my degree and my background is actually in engineering. So
Hmm.
I always thought I was really strongly drawn to him because I loved the invention side of things, but I loved being a superhero as well. So then I also like that he has a lot of different personalities and costumes. So then I can be like, oh, I want to be in lots of different costumes. So he's always been my favorite ever since my very first comic book and to this day.
What comic books are you currently reading? Or
So I usually read mostly Marvel
Mhm.
because that's usually kind of what I mostly do. And lately, I'm so far behind, so I haven't really got caught up yet because Halloween, because this was actually being filmed in October. And so literally, I'm probably like 2 months behind because I spent the last 2 months building 10 different costumes to wear for Halloween. Yeah. But a lot of my other stuff comes from the new TV shows as well.
Uh-huh.
So I love the new CW because they're doing great they're crushing with all the DC
Oh my
TV shows,
gosh. Like,
right?
okay,
So for
so
like this Halloween, I was a Arrow from Green Arrow, well, Green Arrow from Arrow, and
mhm.
then I was also the Flash. So it's kind of
Okay,
fun.
I just want to add to that and say that we're actually currently filming this on the 8th of November 2016.
Election
And
day.
just last night, we
Mhm.
got told that Young Justice is coming back for a third season. Now,
Yes!
I don't know about the rest of the world, but when that happened, I literally felt as if I was using the canary cry.
Right? That's
You know,
fantastic. I didn't actually hear that, so that
so
is wonderful.
there you go.
I know.
Um,
I loved that show. I
they
have no
they
idea when they would cancel it. I was so mad they switched into the
do you
Titans
know
one. I was like,
do you know
how?
why they cancelled it? And this
I
is
heard it.
one of the reasons I heard, right? And I
Right.
thought this was a dumb reason.
Hmm.
Apparently Mattel had like a deal with the producers of the show, and they said, okay, we will do your toy line. And because the show's toys were not appealing to young girls,
Okay.
it got axed. And I'm like, okay, so this was a comic book based show that starred predominantly young boys.
Right.
You know, it appeals to young boys, but they're selling their toys to young girls.
Yeah.
That's like
I never
saying
understand stuff like that.
that's like putting two and two together and getting 46 in my book, you know. And to be fair, now they did do a video game for the show, but
Oh,
it came out. I don't know where it came out for you when it came out for you guys over in the States, but for us
mhm.
over here in the UK, we had gotten through all of season one, and we had got halfway through season two before the game actually was available to buy. And do you know what the
You're like, good times.
tagline? Do you know what the best of it was? Like they told us that the video game takes place in between seasons one and two, and I'm like, well, we're kind of halfway through season two as it is, so it's about late this game coming out, but it was a good game.
That's always good then. I know. I heard that it was just the wrong demographic, so they wanted a younger demographic, which is why they switched it to the other kind of toy line, and why they
Um,
switched to like a younger, like toony anime style type thing. So that's what I heard. That's what I read online. But Young Justice is always one of my favorite cartoons. I loved it.
I feel as if this isn't like the biggest internet troll ever, like I pray to like any deity that is listening, you know, because I'm not a overly religious person, as a lot of people know, but I'm
Right.
praying to any deity that listens, just any of them, please let this be true, you know.
You don't even have to pray to a deity. Just pray to the CEO of Toon Network.
Yeah,
Come on, Cartoon
yeah.
Network. Do it.
I'm actually, in fact, I'm going to pray to the people at CW and just say, you pick up this show and make it great again. Um,
I'm waiting for the new version that's going to be on Fridays. I just know it's going to happen. It hasn't been announced. It hasn't even been talked about. But literally, they have enough people in the other CW shows where they could totally make a Young Justice call it a day.
hmm
Hmm.
hmm I
That's fun,
know, I know. I mean, I
right?
do, as the guys who are watching this interview know, I do the television drop on iGameOnline.net. Guys, if you haven't already gone over there, go have a look. We talk about an entire week's worth of television. We're talking about things like Arrow,
Nice.
Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Lucifer, Gotham, Supergirl, Two Broke Girls, Westworld, and Supernatural.
Nice.
We literally should work for the CW because
I know. You pretty much just listed
employ.
almost every single TV show that I watch, so it's nice.
There you go. Well, that will give you something to sit and listen to, and we generally do sometimes do some movies as well. Like we've been trying to get the Lord of the Rings movies done and dusted, and the Hobbit movies, as well as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice.
Um, because you can't do like when I was speaking to my boss about this, I was like, you can't do the likes of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and not mention um, C.S. Lewis, because C.S. Lewis was one of J.R. Tolkien's dearest friends. In fact, the two of them were in a group called the Inklets together. You know,
Interesting.
yeah, and
I
we
knew that
go in
either.
we
The
go
more
into
you
that in
know,
great.
shooting
Yeah,
star.
yep. We actually go into that kind of thing, and we have said to people, you know, if there's a show that you'd like us to watch or even do, let us know. Like, I kid you not, the amount of time we spent talking about Game of Thrones when it
Mm.
was on, like, it monopolizes whenever we're on. And I say thank you to everybody at HBO because you give me a job, you know? So it's like, thank you very much for having that show.
Right? But it's such a good show. I love
It
it.
is. It's
Yeah.
like we find it very, very hard because I always watch my television alongside like you guys in the States. It's like I cannot wait for like episode 2 to be on in the UK. It's like another week away. No. Um,
You're like, where's that on the internet?
yeah. So I find it very difficult not to talk about what's happened in the next episode when somebody from the UK is with us and they're like, I don't want to know spoilers. It's like, well, okay then, bye.
Right. Now's the time to shut me off. I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah,
Come back in 12 minutes.
exactly. Um, so you said that you take inspiration from some of those shows. Is there any other shows that you take inspiration from when you're creating a costume?
You know what? It always depends, to be quite honest.
Hmm.
Like my inspiration can come literally from anywhere. I go like thrift shopping quite a lot because it's something that I truly love. So I'll just go and I'll look and I'll find one little weird thing and I'll be like, "This is my next costume," and I was like, "Yes!" Like I found these cheetah print tights
Hmm.
at like a thrift shop, and I was like, "Craven the Hunter," and everybody's like, "What the heck is Craven the Hunter?" And I'm like, "Get out." So then I totally made a whole entire Craven the Hunter outfit because I found cheetah tights, and I was like, "Yes!" So it's always like I have a lot. How to say this? So I have a vast variety of everything that I love.
Hmm.
So when I find a piece, I'm like, "Bing!" Like I love Disney because I worked for Disney forever, so that's one of my part-time gigs. So I almost always do some sort of Disney cosplay. So like the one that just became a little bit of like kind of a big hit was at Dragon Con because my friends and I did all the characters from Atlantis. So I was Milo.
I seen those pictures. That
Yeah.
was fantastic.
This one like it was a photographer that we didn't even know. She snapped this picture at the Georgia Aquarium. Oh my God, it looks like I'm actually in Atlantis. Like it was my favorite thing ever. Then I got randomly like tagged by all my friends because she didn't know me and I didn't know her. So she posted the picture and she's like, "Somebody figure out who this is." And I was like,
I love that. I love that kind of interaction with people.
"Mm-hmm."
Um, now you
And like the
mentioned
internet
that.
quite is small. Like that's what I always think. Like everybody thinks the world is big, but since the internet, everyone knows everyone. You're 7 people away at the very most. So
Do you know the worst of it? I was supply shopping yesterday for a prop that I'm making, or
okay.
at this point, I'm still making that prop, guys. Um, hopefully it will be finished before you see my live stream on the 11th, no, sorry, 19th of November. Um, fingers crossed. So I actually went into my local comic book store because I cannot go into my hometown without visiting my local comic book store. It's like it's a foregone conclusion. If I'm down in the town, I'm going into that shop. And I
Absolutely.
get relatively upset if the door is closed and I can't go in. I'm like banging on the door. I need to come in.
You're like, but I'm here. You should open up. Right.
Exactly. So I actually met somebody in the store when I was there, and they're like, "I know you," and they're just like pointing at me like, "I know you," and I'm like, "Okay," and they're like, "Yeah, but I know you from somewhere," and I'm like, well, I live in this town, so it's very
Right.
possible, you've seen me walking around. And she's like, no, 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 no. I'm pretty sure that we've met before. And she's just looking around as if to say, right, is there somebody here who can help me identify where I've
Anyone?
met him before?
Anyone? Bueller? No. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy who owns the store says, well, he's a cosplayer. He goes to Comic Cons quite commonly, And I'm like, yeah, I only started doing it like a year ago. And she's like, "Oh yeah, now I remember you. You were Poison Ivy this past year." And I'm like, "Yes." And you know the worst of it, I felt so bad for saying this, but I said, "Yes. Who were you?"
But see, I don't think it's a bad thing because like it's hard to remember every single person that you meet. So
Exactly.
like I don't really think it's a bad thing.
A person that I had a conversation with last night said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, she pulls out her phone and she starts swiping like through pictures, and she's saying, "I'm pretty sure I got a picture of you." And I'm like, "Who were you dressed as?" And she's like, "Oh, I was dressed as Harley Quinn from the Suicide Squad movie." And I'm like, right, I met
Yeah.
at least 5 Harley Quinns dressed that same
Only
day.
five? Because geez, I walked down the street and I could swing a bat and hit 17 of them. It was crazy. It's ridiculous.
Irony there because Harley Quinn does actually use a bat in that movie. So,
I know. That's why I thought it was funny. Come on,
uh,
I've seen it. Of course.
you're so lucky. I still at this particular moment in time, I still haven't had the chance to go and see it because
What?
I'll get into that after the interview because there's a story
All right.
behind that I can't share on air. Um,
There better be a good story because it was a good movie.
oh, it is really a good story.
All right.
Um, but yeah,
Shoot.
like she like flicking through her phone, she can't find the picture she's looking for. And I say, you know what? I think I actually got a picture of you. And she's like, oh, you must have because like we stood and talked for ages. And I'm like scratching my head, going, ages? Like seriously? Um,
In
because like,
contrast, that actually means 5 minutes though. So
well, yeah, that's what I was thinking because I was like, the longest conversation I've ever had at a Comic Con
Mhm.
was with Jamal Engel when I cornered him for like an hour and 40 minutes. It's like you're not going anywhere. I'm talking to you. You know. Hi Jamal, if you're watching this, remember me? I was the crazy little Harley Quinn kid that ran up to you and said, "You're going to talk to me and do an interview live. Good luck."
You're like, and go.
Which was amazing, by the way. Like, if you do get the chance to watch that on my channel, you'll realize that I really did corner him and just like talk. You know? Um, but yeah, so I'm flicking through my phone and I find the picture of her with a friend of ours who's dressed as Raven, and I'm like, "Is this you?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's me." I was like, "We didn't talk for a good 25 minutes. It was like 25 seconds. It was like,
Right.
hi, I want a picture. Okay, stand, click, bye." Which was just weird.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by how good people's memories are. Like I met somebody, oh my gosh, like 3 or 4 years ago in Chicago, and they saw me at Dragon Con, and I was shaved because I've had a beard for a long time now.
Hmm.
So then I shaved. I was blonde. I was in a really kind of costume where I couldn't even recognize myself. And the guy walks up and goes, "Hey, Dan," and I was like, "What? How are they able to recognize me?" And I'm like, "This is ridiculous, ridiculous."
Do you know the worst of it is, as you guys can see, like my hair is blonde at the moment. When I dye my hair brunette,
Hmm.
nobody will recognize me. Like I remember being in Edinburgh, um, a month or two back, and I met two people that I know and two people that I've actually interviewed actually. And they're like the girl's looking at me and she just kind of like waves like hi. Because like I knew who they were and I just kind of like waved like hi. And she's like, hi,
Awkward hello.
awkward hello. And the guy noticed me and he kind of like smiled and waved and whatnot. And then I was like, oh, I can't like just ignore them. I need to go and say hello properly. So I kind of like ran back to them and said, hi, how are you? And they're like, oh, hi, how are you? And they're like, sorry, do we know you? And I'm like, yes, you do. You just
You're
might
like,
not recognize me because I don't have blonde hair at the moment. So it was really, really funny because the girl was actually, I think I have it close by. Yep, I do. See, this is live, guys. When Jai reaches back to find something. I was wearing this necklace,
yes.
you know,
That's
and the girl was actually admiring the necklace, and she said that to me, and I'm like, Tegan, it's me. Hi. And she's like, oh my God, it's you. Hi, how are you? Which we spent a good 10 minutes laughing after that. But there you go.
absolutely. I love running into people if they don't recognize me that I'm like actually friends with. Because like if I'm in a costume, they have no idea, and I love it. That's my favorite thing. Favorite thing.
um, so you mentioned going to Comic Cons. What is one of your favorite aspects about going to a Comic Con?
It's costumes. I love costumes. I'm a costume person. Like any real chance that I ever get to dress up, I'm in. Like that's it. Like people are like, "Hey, there's a theme night at the bar down the street," and I'm like, "I'm in." They're like, "We didn't even tell you the theme," and I'm like, "I don't care. I'll make something for it. It'll be fine." Yep.
Awesome.
Christmas in July, I'm in. I'll make rainbow, like not rainbow, peppermint stick pants. Those were entertaining. So yeah.
What is one of the more when you go to a Comic Con, what is one of the more nerve-wracking aspects, or something that used to be nerve-wracking?
Hmm. I would say not knowing what to buy because I always really want everything there, and then I'm like, ah, and then I think I'm gonna come back for it, and then trying to find it again is the most aggravating thing for me. Like I have to keep notes. Like I literally carry around pencil and paper, and I'm like, okay, row 800, fourth booth in, weird T-shirt, perfect. Because I don't want to carry it because I don't want it to ruin my costume. So then like at last hour of the whole con, then I just kind of like boop, beep, boop, boop, and ping pong back around to try to get everything.
Do you know what you should do? You should do what I do. Talk a family member into going with you and say, right, for the entirety of the day, I need you to be my cameraman, my
Yep.
photographer, my Sherpa, and my all-around friend, just in case somebody that I don't like comes near me.
Yep. I always call him pack mule. So
Yeah,
just hold my stuff and there you go.
yeah. That's
See,
that's what I did this year with my cousin Raymond. I was just like, here, you're gonna carry all of this crap, and I'm gonna walk unencumbered
yeah. I have a couple friends that
among
will
my
do that
people.
for me. So they're quite nice. Like two of my besties will do it. But one I can never get convince him to go to the Comic Con. And the other one will never dress up, so I don't really have to worry about it because he's like, nah, he's fine.
Do you know the best of it? Like, I asked my cousin, are you gonna dress up for it? Because this was the first time that he'd ever went to a Comic Con with me.
Hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about doing Shawn Michaels because he's very big into wrestling." And
Okay.
then at the finish up, he just ended up going like a guy from our local hometown, you know.
Okay.
And I'm like, "You are such a cop out, you know. You're such a cop out. Here you have me wearing something where I'm half dressed, you
Right.
know. So I'm running around absolutely freezing, begging people to just come up and hug me so that I can get some body warmth. You know, in the
You
middle
need those
of,
free hug signs.
yeah, like I saw somebody with a free hug sign, and quite frankly, I was like, yeah, I don't want to hug you. But
Anybody with those signs, usually you don't want to. They're given away for free for a reason.
there was a girl there dressed as Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer because
Oh, okay.
James Masters was actually in attendance at that Comic Con, and she had this
Nice.
amazing leather coat on, and she's actually a really good friend of mine as well. You know who you are, Julie.
Calling
So
out.
yeah, I remember speaking to her, and she had this table, and I was sitting on the table at the time because I was absolutely frozen, and I was trying to untangle myself as well at the same time. And I just kind of like turned to her and said, Julie, please just can I have your leather coat? Because I'm absolutely freezing. And she's like, but then I'd be cold. And I'm like, that's not my problem. That is really not my problem.
You just share the coat. You go in there and you go the front way in and you put your arms through her arms, then you can both share it.
Exactly. That's what I should have done. Um, okay, so since being on the show, I want to know what's that like when you go to a Comic Con now? Are you absolutely mobbed with people?
No, which is kind of nice. Right after the show, it was kind of like that, but now it's been so long that a lot of people still remember it, and a lot of people will kind of point and be like, I think I saw Charlotte, but nobody will come up to me anymore, so it's kind of nice. And then every now and again, when somebody does, they're like, I have a weird question for you. And I'm like, I love weird questions, so go. They're like, have you ever watched a show called Who Wants to Be a Superhero? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. I'm not gonna let you finish, and I'm like, yeah, it's it. They're like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I go to conventions. I love conventions. And I'm like, I'm always at conventions. And like, oh my gosh. And it was like, I'm always dressed as something random. They're like, why do you never cosplay as yourself? And I'm like, it's not really cosplay. I just call it
Me.
my costume. It's
Me.
just like, it's still me, you know? So
So I have
now and
to
again, I'll dress up in it. But yeah,
I
just for a
have to
reason.
ask when the show kind of like finished, when season two finished, and
Right.
you guys were doing the Comic Cons, because
Mhm.
I kind of think that's what they like shuffled you guys into, like, okay, the show's finished now, you're going to do the Comic Con.
Right.
Was there anybody that ever cosplayed as you?
Yes. I
And
actually have a couple different pictures of people that actually have cosplayed me. And I find it as one of the most flattering things ever. Like, because being a cosplayer and looking up and like doing that kind of stuff and doing really spending time on a costume and knowing what goes into it,
Mhm.
I know that like if somebody really wants to do a cosplay, it's because they truly love it. You know what I mean? And so seeing people dressed as my character, I'm like, what? And then last year at Dragon Con, I was talking to two guys on an escalator, right? Because they were dressed as Captain America and Winter Soldier. And we're going up the escalator, going to a party. And then I was telling them something about it. And they're like, wait, are you? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh my God, I cosplayed as you. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, it was like 5 years ago and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I think I have your picture as it. And he goes, no, you do not. And I'm like, I do, because I think one of my students actually sent me a picture of you as it. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, I'm going to find you tomorrow at Dragon Con. So it was a big thing, right? And I'm like, I'm going to find you tomorrow and I'm going to prove it. I had the picture and it was him. Yep.
Oh,
Now we're friends on Facebook. And it was like, it was just a weird thing because of like, yeah, it's one of those happenstance meetings. It was just kind of fun.
um, so this is, I'm just going to backpedal a little second here. Obviously, you've been doing Comic Con for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming that's before you went on the show as well.
Mhm.
Um, what opportunities did cosplay open up for you as an individual?
And opportunities is kind of interesting because I get asked to do a lot of costumes for like charity events and that kind of stuff for a lot of local stuff. Other than that, I host a costume contest sometimes at them and like that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much about it. Like I always treat costumes as a fun hobby more than anything else out. So people are like, you should do it for a living. And I'm like, ugh, I just don't want to take the passion out of it because like I want to make a costume because I really want to wear it. That's pretty much how it works. So.
Would you ever consider doing it for a living? Or have you ever considered it?
So I used to teach fashion design at a college. That's how I kind of got started into teaching in the first place. And then the guy that I worked for there actually had a company that did costumes for show choirs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So at one point, I actually went and worked for him, just doing random stuff like weird sewing and bedazzling outfits and cutting patterns and like that kind of weird stuff. So I did it for probably like 6 months or so. But like, I don't know if I would actually do costumes. Like one of my other hobbies is to make clothing.
Mhm.
So I make a lot of superhero themed bathing suits. So I was super interested in maybe selling those as a job, but I'm still trying to get the licensing rights for it because I actually talked to Marvel and I talked to DC about it, trying to acquire the licensing rights for some of the characters.
Awesome.
So we'll see.
Um,
I'll leave that one up.
how now, just before we fully get into the talking about the show, because that's something that I can guarantee that will be the bulk of the interview. Um, how interesting is it working with the likes of Marvel and DC? Because you mentioned there about trying to get the
Right.
licensing rights and such likes. Are they
It's
difficult to get a hold of, or
Yes. It is so difficult. And then no one ever wants to talk to you, right?
Mhm,
Because you're so tiny. So I tried to initially do it by myself. And then I partnered with my friend who had the clothing business,
mhm,
and he had his costume business for probably 7 or 8 years. So we were well established. We had many different like we had a whole catalog, we had websites, we had everything. So I partnered with them to try to get further in it, and they're like, no, we don't really make superhero swimsuits now, so we don't want you to make ours. And I was like, but the only swimsuits I want to make are superhero swimsuits.
mhm.
And then I'm like, it's kind of like the catch 22 because it's like you don't do it. I'm like, I want to do it. They're like, well, you can't. And I'm like, so it's kind of one of those things.
Okay.
So there is a way around it. There's a couple different ways around it actually. Because I talked to one lawyer actually at Comic-Con in San Diego because she was great. So she is a fashion lawyer. That is her actual job. Like, and she was the most interesting thing because her and the head person for her universe for Hot Topic stores,
Uh-huh.
because they make a lot of the different cosplay like inspired wear. They had a panel together, and it was the most interesting thing. So after it, I went up there and talked to them both about it because I was like, how would I possibly approach this? And they're like, the other way to actually get it done is to do a third party. So like find a company that has the rights and sublease them from them. So kind of make them make your outfit, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was actually looking at was doing something not as like fashion orientated. It was more of a computer thing, which I'll again add on later on. But when I was discussing this, it was I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. I couldn't use these characters without approaching like the parent companies that own the characters. And I'm like, you know what? I really want to do this, but again, it's so difficult to get a hold of anybody from DC or Marvel and say,
Yeah.
right, okay, I'd like to do this. Can I use your character's name? You know,
Right.
it doesn't need to be an exact representation of how they look or how they act. Just the name, alone is a pain in the butt.
Yep.
And do you know the best way I found around that kind of thing for what I was wanting to do was that I don't profit from it,
Oh yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And that was the only way that I could see of actually getting a chance to go ahead and do this. But
Hmm.
I'm holding back on it right now because I'm like, yeah, there's still some other stuff that I'd like to do. I'd like to live like 5 more years before some person from Marvel or DC finds me and shoots me in the back of the head. Just like, I want to live. You
The
know,
worst thing you're gonna do is show up at your door and be like, "Here's your cease and desist." So I'm like,
exactly.
man, right. So I do the same thing because I have one of a kinds. So I make myself everything that I want. So
Mhm.
like I have a lot of different stuff. But then people always come up to me and they're like, "Where can I buy that from?" And I'm like, "Sorry, I can't because they can't sell it." And then I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "What if you just give it to me?" And I was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's entertaining."
That would be, that you should be thanking your lucky stars that I live in the UK and you live over in Florida because I would be knocking on your door so often saying, right, I'm going to this Comic Con. You're probably going to it too because I'll drag you there. But I need you
Absolutely.
to make this costume for me. And I'd like hold the sketch in front of you like this. In fact, I'd probably knock on your door, sketch right out in front of you, be like, make this. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
I have a lot of people that actually do it. It's like for Halloween that was just kind of happening. I probably lent out, geez, I probably dressed. I had 10 costumes, but I probably lent out at least 18 other ones because like I have a lot of costumes. Like when I say I have a lot of costumes, I'm like it's ridiculous amounts of costumes. So people just come over and they're just like, I want to be something, and I'm like, you'd be more specific because there's no way to even start with that. And I'm like, okay, so it's
I
kind of
think
fun.
I think the biggest problem I have is being too specific.
Oh, that's a good problem though.
I remember the first costume that I did with Harley with the big long jacket that I had. Um, I took a sketch that I did to the woman who was making the jacket because the jacket is actually handmade and I still own it. And Liz, I love you for making it. I love you so much. You're just awesome. And she's gonna kill me for saying that, but I don't care. Um,
Hey, if she does good work, she gets a shout out. That's how it works.
Exactly. She's done both my Harley Quinn jacket and my Poison Ivy costume. And do you
Nice.
know the worst of it? Like when I spoke to her about doing the Poison Ivy one, I was like, okay, so I want to show quite a bit of skin on this, but
Right.
I'm really, really nervous about it. And she's like, okay, so what materials do you have? So I gave her the materials that I had, and she's like, okay, well, instead of like we looked at pictures of Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy when she first emerges from the ground.
Yes.
The
Love it.
only decent scene in that god awful movie, you know, sorry for people who are fans of that movie, but Uma
I
Thurman,
am a fan of that movie. I like it. I like all the Batmans though, but
well, Uma Thurman bursting out the ground when she first appears was probably the best scene for me. It was like she's here. The costume was just like my costume was based off of that one, you know.
that's cool.
And when I showed those pictures, because we found it really difficult to get a decent picture of
Hmm.
Uma Thurman in that costume, because
Yep.
every picture had this horrible lighting to it. And
The whole movie really had horrible lighting, but that was kind of a stylized choice for them, I think.
well, yeah. So when we found a half decent one, which was only like from, oh God, it was like from a little bit all under her belt line up.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah. My costume mistress looked at it and she said, right, so we're gonna have to cut your top, which was this green vest. And
Hmm.
she's like, we're gonna have to cut it so that it covers just I'm gonna have to slightly stand.
Like
So
visual
like,
time.
okay, I'm gonna actually have to stand up a little bit for this so that you guys can see what I'm meaning. She said we're gonna have to cut it so that it sits just like there
Hmm.
and then goes down like down to the side of you here, but shows off all of that.
Right.
Like literally all of that. So, and in case anybody didn't get it there, I do have a Native American t-shirt on today. Um,
I
you know,
think
it's
we'll,
just like
but
it was the first thing out of my drawer. I don't care. It's like it was there. I'm gonna wear it. I love the t-shirt.
I like it.
Um,
I debated on what to wear today, by the way, for the interview. I probably put on 4 or 5 different T-shirts, and I'm like, no, but I'm like, I have no idea. And I'm like, do I want to represent like a certain superhero or anything like that? And I'm like,
well,
no, forget it. So I went with blue. Yeah,
you look good in blue,
thank you. It's my Parthenon color. What?
but
Well, it's
I
supposed
have
to
to
be my
say
Parthenon color.
I have to say black is slimming for me. Sort of. Sort of.
Black is slimming for everyone. It looks good on everyone.
Yes, and it's always in.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Um, so just I have this funny feeling that people are watching this and they're going, "What the hell are they on about?"
Right. They're like fashion tips. Wing.
Um, so yeah, when we made the costume, I have this thing about showing off my body. I'm like,
Sure.
body. Mm." I have this love-hate relationship with my body. I love it, and it hates me.
I
So,
love it.
um, so I
A
said
lot of
to her that
costumes are shirtless too, so I feel you on this because like
yeah.
a lot of them are because I like to take that kind of spin on things usually. So I feel you.
Um, so when she had actually made the costume and she got the ivy like attached to the top, because I went and bought fake ivy, like
Yep.
so many rolls of fake ivy. I think I actually had 2 or 22 left over. Um, so we had a very green looking house for the next 4 or 5 months. Um,
I suffer from the same thing. Like whatever I just wore, it will literally be all over my house. Like you
mhm.
can't see it, but there's a pile of costumes sitting next to me from Halloween. They're all over. Like so, your green leaves. Literally, I'm staring at my little like Audrey 2 because it has leaves all over it, and it's just like yes. But literally, there's a pile of leaves sitting next to it on the floor. So that's why I'm like, I feel your pain on this one.
Um, so yeah, once she got the top, she gave me a call and she said, "Okay, are you available today to come up for a fitting?" And I'm like, I have 10 minutes. I can be there in less than two." So I go around to her house and I try it on. And I just gotten the wig that day as well, because in the Poison Ivy one, it is a wig, guys. I was not dyeing my hair red, you know. And plus, I just had my hair cut, so I was like, I need a wig. So I gave her the wig and said, right, here's the wig. Do what you can with it. Like
Right.
attach leaves, you know.
Right.
And she said, okay, no problem. I'll sit and do that. You go try this on. So I run into her bathroom and I'm like, okay, getting the shorts on. And I look down at my legs and just go, okay, so the tree trunks are out. That's what I refer to my legs as, the tree trunks.
Absolutely.
And it was fitting for the character, you know.
Mhm.
And I managed to somehow work out how to put on this top
Okay.
because I was like, okay, it looks like an ordinary vest, but it's clearly not anymore.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get into this top and I'm trying to move the ivy around my stomach so that it looks like it's sitting there.
Mhm.
And I then try to put my arm through the actual sleeve part and into the collar because what she did was she attached ivy to the actual straps
Okay.
so that it would wind down my arm, but
Sure.
it had a little collar thing at the cuff, because I
Yeah.
have these black bracelet things that I can't take off. So I wanted something to cover that. So she did that for both arms, and I'm trying to like work out that, and then immediately as I'm finished, kind of like stumble out of her bathroom and bump into her husband, and he just kind of looks at me, and I'm like, "Yep, it's
You're
that time of
like,
year again." And because she makes costumes quite commonly, he doesn't really bother. He's just like, "She's through there," and I'm like, "I know where she is." You know? And I walk through into the room, and she's like, "Oh, it looks great! It looks great!" And I'm like, "You can't see the rolls of fat," and she's like, "No." And
Oh,
I'm like, "Can I take it off now?" And she's like, "No, you need to like get used to it, walk around in it for a bit." Do you know
right.
the funniest thing? I was so super intimidated after bumping into her husband. Her
Mhm.
two daughters, who I'm really good friends with, actually come in to see their mum during the day. And then not only that, but the two daughters' boyfriends also come in.
Oh my.
And I'm like, okay, everybody and their mother is coming in to see me and her
Literally.
in this house.
But
And
think
I
about that
eventually,
versus the number of people to con. So
exactly. I eventually get used to it. And do you know the funniest thing that actually happened that day? She has this beautiful little dog,
okay.
Obi, I think his name is. And he was out in the back garden for the majority of the time that I was there. Obi
Mhm.
comes running in at one point through like the patio doors,
Mhm.
and he takes one look at me, stops, and then just walks back out into the garden again. And I'm like, okay, so the dog didn't like the costume, but
Right. Dog. No. No.
yeah, yeah, dog
Leaves go
didn't.
outside. That's what we're doing.
Exactly. But I just thought that was so funny, the reaction from the dog. It was like everybody else was like, "Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it," and the dog was like, "Nah, it's not good enough." Um, have you ever had a reaction like that where somebody's looked at a costume you've done and they've just went, "Eh"?
Yeah, all the time. I think everyone has an opinion on stuff, and so like literally, you get everything. And especially at a comic book convention, people are like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, thanks. It's great."
Has
But yeah,
anybody ever said that to you in person? Like,
oh
has
yeah,
anybody come up to you at a con and just went, "I hate your costume"?
right. Be like, "I don't get what you are." I'm like, "That's okay. I didn't make it for you." Fan. Yeah. It
Um,
happens at Halloween quite a lot because I like weird costumes too, and they're like, "What the hell are you supposed to be?" And I'm like, "I'm a frost prince, of course." And people are like, "Okay."
I'm I'm trying to think of some of your other costumes that I've seen this year for Halloween. That there was one of them that it took me a moment to get what it was you were, and I'm
Uh,
trying to think of what it was now.
was it Link from Zelda?
It might have
Um,
been because it was very obscure. Like you didn't have any props or anything. It was like one of the almost like one of
was it,
the underwear ones, and I was
oh,
like, oh, is it
Flash?
that one? And I was just like kind of looking and I'm going, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Flash was very like I think the Flash was fairly noticeable. I don't
Yeah,
know which one
because
it
like
would be.
the Flash one, I'd seen like you turn to the side and I seen
Lightning bolts.
yeah, and I was like, oh, he's the Flash. Um, but there was one that you did that I was like, I don't know what it is he's doing.
Oh, was it Pikachu?
It might have been. It
Yeah.
might have been.
That one is a funny story because literally,
Uh,
my friend that I went with, he wasn't originally going to be able to go that day.
mhm.
So he messaged me the night before and he's like, "Hey, I got tomorrow off." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And I'm like, "What do you want to be?" And he's like, "I like 90s video games and anime." And I'm like, "Oh my." So then I literally was like 3 in the morning and I made the whole entire Pikachu tail and the Pikachu ears and stuff and his ash hat and like it was kind of crazy. So when it's Pikachu and them, but it was like mostly like pants. Actually, here's the tail. Wait, because visuals.
Hey.
Like, does that ring a bell?
Yes, it
Ding.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a Pikachu tail. So like I literally made it within like 2 hours at probably like 3 in the morning, and followed by these like right before I left. So it was like yes. It was one
Um,
of the weirder costumes though, so I'll give you that. But I liked it. I had fun with it.
awesome.
Yeah.
So how long does it normally take you to make a costume or a prop?
Sure. It depends upon what I'm actually doing.
Mhm.
So some things obviously take me like a half an hour, and then you're done. But other stuff where it like is intricate sewing, that'll take me a couple days.
Okay.
But most of the time, I usually don't spend any more time than that. Lately, I've started 3D printing some of my pieces.
Hmm.
So 3D printing takes forever because that's just how it goes. So like my Flash stuff, like I made ear cuffs for him. So like something like this probably took, I want to say like 2.5 hours to print one. So then I had one of these, and then I had like a chest piece, and that chest piece took like 6 hours. And then I had to coat it because you have to like sand it and stuff like that so it looks better. And then you have to paint it. So really, it's just kind of like 5 minutes at a time, and then wait an hour, and then 5 minutes again, and then it's like wait an hour. So
So
it's not
before
too bad.
the 3D printing, what was the most difficult costume or prop you ever made?
Oh, oh, difficult. Before the 3D printing, see, I would still go back to Sharknado because that was really difficult.
Hmm.
But like after that, I did a whole entire Who Wants to Train, no wait, How to Train Your Dragon, right?
Hmm.
So I worked Toothless quite a lot because I loved it. But originally, when I first made them, I made 3 dragons and 3 riders, and so I was Hiccup, but I wanted a fake foot. So again, I got inspired for the whole entire thing because I was in a weird like thrift shop visiting my family in Indiana, and I found um, a telephone climber's hook foot. Okay, so what it does is it goes underneath your boot, and it goes underneath your boot when you're wearing it, and it gets strapped to your leg, and it has like a spike in it, so you can climb up telephone poles,
Hmm.
right? But they're only work in pairs, and so I found one, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, the hiccup foot!" And my dad's like, "What the heck is that?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll figure it out." So the mechanics of having a fake foot, because I literally stood there like this and with my 1 foot up. Oh, that just made me flicking off camera. Hold on 1 second. Edit that part out. So standing there like this, right, with my 1 foot like up behind me, and then I had the fake foot coming down. The mechanics of that was ridiculous. So
How,
that one took
how,
me quite on.
how do you flip off the camera when your finger is pointed down the way?
That just means instead of F off, it means F down. I don't know.
Like
Hoping
totally
listeners
don't
that
work.
edit that out. You can just edit that whole thing out.
We'll do what we can there.
That's enough.
But
Probably, but it's fine.
it's fine, like because like as I don't think I mentioned it, but the TV drop goes out unedited.
Oh, fun.
So like we literally, if we swear, we're screwed. It's like I literally say that to anybody who joins us on that show. It's like if you swear, it's on your own head,
Absolutely.
because it's not
You know
getting
what? I had the
edited.
same rule when I was actually on my TV show. I I enjoy a curse word or two. Let's put it that way, right? So I specifically knew that I would never cuss while I was in my costume. And I still make it actually a rule to this day where I never will say a bad word in my costume. So it was like a thing. So like on the TV show, I made so sure of it. Like it was a conscious thing that I did. So it was kind of funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, let's
Sure.
start and talk about the TV show, the big one that's looming on the corner. It's looming and it's coming to get us. Um,
Sure.
how did you hear about Who Wants to Be a Superhero?
Sure. I actually heard about it on season one,
Hmm.
and I heard it because they were had a radio spot actually. So I was driving to work and somebody had it, and then one of my friends actually was like my bestie at the time. She's like, "Hey, did you hear they're casting the show?" And I was like, "I just heard it on the radio too." So I started coming up with my whole backstory and I drew up sketches of my costume and stuff like that. But then I couldn't find out where to actually audition for it. So
Hmm.
I didn't know when the deadline was or anything like that because they were actually the radio spot was you had to go somewhere to like a wrestling match and then they could actually interview there at the wrestling match. Because weirdly, by the way, the fans of Who Wants to Be a Superhero are almost all wrestling people as well. They go together so well, it's crazy. I mean, I get it, but yeah. Um, so I didn't know what to do, and so I started making a costume and stuff like that. And then I finally found out that I could submit it online. So I was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh! And the deadline was literally like 3 days later, and I'm like, so last minute costume, put it together, did the whole entire video, and sent it off. And I didn't hear back from them. So I was like, ah, man, my costume must have sucked. My backstory wasn't what they were looking for. So I was like, whatever. So I sat there and watched season one. Huge fan of it. I'm a giant kind of nerd for that kind of stuff. So I was like, God, I want to be on the show because it was so good. And then probably a couple months after it aired, I'm in my office at work because at the time I was working in a college. Well, I still am, but a different college. My phone rings and they're like, "Hey, this is blah 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 from the casting company," and I was like, "Right." And so I'm like, "I don't know who you are, who put you up to it," but I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "No, no, but we're casting for season two, and we got your videotape too late, so we already had season one cast, and we're super excited to talk to you about it." And I was like, "What?" Because after season one aired, I was going to try out for season two. I had a whole entire thing. I made because I saw what they were, like what kind of heroes they were, and I wanted more of a personal kind of a hero to go with it. So I made two new heroes, right? And one was called Brace, and one was called the Cape. And this was, by the way, it was before the TV show, so totally mine, the Cape. Um, right. And so I made up humongous backstories and made up new costume pieces and stuff like that. And then they're like, "No, we like your thing as it is, so we're just going to go ahead and fly you here to the auditions for it." So I was like, what? There was nothing else. I didn't have to do anything. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. So I went ahead and remade my original costume because before, I'm telling you, it was like 2 days work, which it was not a good 2 days work because I had to actually like have a job then. So I'm like, wait, if I'm actually going to go and interview like live, and I'm like, screw it. So then me and one of my other friends sewed a whole entire new suit within 2 days again. But she actually works at Universal Studios, and she was a costumer there. So she actually made the superhero costumes for Marvel Island. So my costume was pretty good when after I redid it. So it's like, yes. So redid it, went there, and they flew me to LA. And then I actually met a lot of the heroes on the show because most of them were flown there for the live
Yeah,
auditions.
yeah.
And so, but there was a lot actually that I never saw again because they didn't make it past the initial auditions. But yeah, so I got to meet most of them, and then we auditioned. Super like, even if I stopped at that point, I would have been happy with it because like I got to talk live with Stan Lee, and I'm like, boom, check, boom, and we was good. You know what I mean? Because I was like, that's all I really wanted, and I'm good. I'm like, whatever. So after that, they flew me back home, and then sit there for like, geez, a couple weeks, right?
Hmm.
And they're like, they sent me another thing, and they're like, "Hey, we want to pull together some of your friends to talk about you and who you are and stuff like that. So pick people that are like really want you to be on the show. And people would be really excited. So like your close friends and family and stuff like that. And we're gonna come and film you for that." So I was like, "Okay," but I'm like, my spider sense started going off, and I'm like, I don't want this if I'm not gonna be on the thing. So I invited people to my school. The video guy came in, and then once we were all together, and they're like, "This is how it's going to work. We're going to kind of interview you guys, and we're going to ask you questions about Dan, so you can say whatever you want, and blah, blah, blah." So like, but we need a group shot first. So they got us all together. And they're like, "And congratulations, you're on the show." And I was like, yeah, because it was exactly what I thought they were going to do, because I'm like, ding, ding, ding. So everybody's freaking out. And so then literally it was really quick after that. So like, they flew me to the show, they flew me to LA, and then it was kind of a weird thing after that. So it was fun. I enjoyed it.
So you mentioned there that you watched the whole of season one, and I just want
Oh.
to know who was your favorite from season one?
Ah, I like a lot. I love Levity, even though he's on like half an episode, because I met him in real life and he's super nice. Fat Mama, I've met her many times at conventions. She's adorable.
I've
Like,
seen like a couple of pictures of the two of you together at conventions,
yeah,
and I have to admit she was my favorite on season one as well. Like I loved
delightful.
what she stood for, and I loved the fact that she was like a mother as well.
Yeah,
It was just kind of like, oh, she was trying to like the message that I got from her was like, um, just because you're a mother doesn't mean to say that that's everything that you are.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Well, her thing was like all about everything. So she's like inclusiveness for literally everything. So,
exactly.
right. And then after the show, I kind of had more favorites and stuff, but feedback is nice. I've hung out with him many different, like, not many, but a couple different times. And like,
Mhm.
he's actually weirdly interviewed me for his school because he's
Has
trying
he?
to get, yeah, he needed to talk to a fellow teacher because he's studying me to be a teacher as well. So he's like, can I interview you? And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing, but sure. Yeah.
Um,
So they're
who
great.
who from season one had the biggest impact on Parthenon in general?
my my character was already set, to be quite honest. The thing I learned from season one is I sat there and watched the show and I rewatched the show, especially when I
Mhm.
was going to be on it, because I'm like, I will never fall for any of these tricks, like any of these tricks. And the funny thing is, because season one had the attack dogs. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I remember that.
Right. So I specifically Googled how to defeat attack dogs, right? And so I learned the German keywords, the Russian keywords, like a whole bunch of different, because they're almost all in different languages. So
Hmm.
I literally had a printout in the hero's lair of how to stop like German keywords on how to stop attack dogs. So I thought it was hilarious that I got voted out. And then the next episode was that. And I was like, dang, because I could have totally been like, dog, stop. And they would have been like, what? And I'd be like, do, 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 do. And then the producers would always get mad at me because I would try to like, not even me, but like a lot of us tried
Uh-huh.
to outsmart them all the time. And then I don't think were going to be ready for that because like they had no idea that they were actually dealing with people. Like
I
Braid was an FBI agent. Like uh,
who was an
Diffuser was a cop. Like it was ridiculous. Like ridiculous.
who was an FBI agent? Sorry,
Braid.
Raids.
First one out. Yeah. I actually met her before, and so we were talking. So she was a former FBI agent. Yep.
Ah, wow,
Right? It's
that's
weird.
insane.
But like a lot of us were really good at a lot of different stuff. Like I know you talked to John, Hyperstrike, and so he was really good at anything physical. So like nobody could really stop him. You know what I mean? Because they're just like, here's something, and he's like, flip it over it. And he's like, done. I'm just like, what?
Um, one of the things that I do want to ask you, because you just mentioned it there that you were voted out before
Sure.
this actual challenge happened. And I spoke to John about this as well. And if Melanie actually goes ahead with her interview, which I really hope she does, um,
She's great.
I will mention this to her as well. But I remember watching that episode after you were voted off, which, by the way, we were literally just going like I watched the show with my two cousins, my oldest cousin and his brother, and we
Right.
were literally like we're not. I wouldn't say that we were like close at that particular point, but we were all sitting like this, holding each other's hands, grasping them tight at every elimination. Once it got down to like the final four, the final
Right.
three, we were all like, no, 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 no. And then we would look back on that episode after somebody got eliminated and go, right, so we understand why they went out, but here's why we think they shouldn't have went out.
Yeah.
And I have to say, your elimination was the biggest argument in that house ever. You know, you had
My, yeah.
you had my oldest cousin who was arguing and saying, no, he shouldn't have been voted out. Because Diffuser did this and Hygiena did this and Hyperstrike did this, and that was much worse than what he did. And then you had my youngest cousin arguing the opposite side by saying, no, but he also did this, and obviously Stan has noted that, you
Right.
know, and he had me just sitting there in the middle going, I can't believe he's gone. You know? um,
The show in general is interesting because you have to remember it's a reality show, right?
mhm, mhm.
But it is still partially scripted reality show because like they have the villains, they have the stuff that you're supposed to do and all this kind of stuff. Now, like I kind of said before, like I was notorious for kind of going around them for doing other stuff. So the episode that I actually got voted off was a total shock for me because I did not expect it because I actually did really well in all of the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
all of them. And I actually won the first one with the kids, but they never showed it. They don't come across like that because it's editing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then the one with Stan kind of like talking to you via your watch, right? It's so edited that I get asked about it all the time. They're like, "Why would you take that person's cane?" And I was like, "I didn't. You missed it because 30 seconds after it, I ran it back to that person." And they're like, "You did?" And I was like, "Of course I did." I'm like, "I'm not going to take people's canes." And I'm like, "What the heck are you thinking?" And then, but the thing is, like, they're never like when I first started it. Because what happens is like they're talking to you, right? So it's a live thing, and so then they're like, "Do this," and I'm like, "Why would I do that?" And I'm like, "My character would never do this." They're like, "Why no? But we need footage of it." And I'm like, "I get that, but if you have footage of it, that means I'm doing it, but I really wouldn't do it." And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "I know, but you have to do it." And so I was like, "Okay." So I tried to do it the most like
Polite way possible.
yes, right? And so then, but I always made sure I undid anything that I did.
See,
But then but you never see it. And so
that was the
then people
one
always ask me about. They're like, "Why are you so stupid? Why did you do this?" And I'm like, "Really?"
that was the one thing that my youngest cousin was contesting with his brother. He was
Yeah,
saying like, "Oh, but Parthenon did this. He took that guy's cane." And my oldest cousin was saying to his brother, but he would have given him a bat because he's not that type of person, you
right.
know.
But see,
And I think
everybody in the whole
that's
show did it.
I think
Like,
that's
you know what
really
I mean?
interesting. Like everybody did that as well, like you're saying. But we were
Mhm.
like the fans were kind of catching on to the fact that you guys aren't really like that. So I think it was very well edited in that respect. And I do
Absolutely.
kind of tip my head to the producers of the show when they entered it that way, or the
Yeah.
editors of the show, I should say.
Right.
But getting back to my original question, the one about the attack dogs, when
Okay.
you were voted off, obviously, were you still watching the show after that, or
Well, I mean, was I there anymore?
no, like after you were finished, were you still like watching it as a fan, or were
Oh
you
yeah,
watching it?
absolutely. Oh yeah.
Right.
I
How?
had viewing parties for every single episode that I was on it,
Hmm.
but I still continued it even after I wasn't because like I am a super big fan of the final three as well. So like
Hmm.
I harbor no ill will or anything like it. So I still love the show. I still love like Stan. He's great. Like I'm good. I'm still a fan of it.
How did you feel when they brought on that challenge and you saw the guys going through that? Like, I can't speak for anybody else, but my heart literally was in my throat when I seen that dog just pinning Melanie to the ground. I was like,
Right?
crap.
Yeah,
I was so scared for her. And even though I knew it was a controlled environment, I was
absolutely.
still kind of like, God, no, 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 no,
Well,
just
it's a
no.
controlled environment, but the suits are padded. But I mean, you're still getting whipped around by a dog that can pretty much kill you if it wanted to. You know what I mean? So like, even if it's biting, you're still biting and patting, but you're still gonna have like bruises and stuff like that. But as a fan, I was like, I would have loved to try to stop those dogs, but I would have loved to just been like, stop, and then have them go, what? And then have the producers go like, what the heck is he doing? Because like that was always my like super fun thing because the other heroes and me kind of did it all the time on purpose, so it was kind of fun. It
Did
was fun.
you, what was your like thoughts as a fan and somebody seeing that
Mhm.
particular episode when she went down like that? Like, what was your reaction to that?
I was nervous for her because I know her, like
Hmm.
I'm friends with her and stuff like that, and so like I knew she was gonna be in trouble. You know what I mean? I knew Diffuser would be fine because Diffuser can like lift a car and be fine, like almost literally. And then John, I thought he was going to be a little bit better at it, but I thought he still did really well. But I knew that she didn't, she wouldn't be good in that challenge. But I loved her strategy of trying to distract the dogs, which I thought was super smart because then she made like a negative into a positive, and I'm like,
Yeah,
she's so good. I love Hygiena, so
that
she's nice.
that was the one thing that for me, like that stood out in that particular episode. Like she
Yep,
she even says that she knows that she's going down.
right.
You know,
I thought it was like a
um,
heroic sacrifice almost. Like
yeah,
it crosses
like
that, and I was like, yes, perfect.
that's why that particular challenge, like when you see them in the lair and they're all crying, I was like,
Hmm.
we're like sitting on the couch watching it, and we were crying along with them, just going, "She was so freaking brave." Um, and
Great.
if Melanie, if you're watching this and you're going to be doing your interview in the future, you were so freaking brave, and I love you for that.
I
Um,
agree.
it was just so scary, like, oh my gosh. Um, so what involvement did you have with the show after your character was eliminated?
So what they do is they basically immediately fly you home. So
Hmm.
literally, it's like you go to a hotel, you sleep for 4 hours, and you get up and you get on an airplane route. And I was like, what? And then the funny thing is, like, because I was almost to the end, right? So
Hmm.
then they asked me if I wanted to fly back for the finale, right? But they're like, but we don't pay for the flights. And I was like, what? And then, so I'm like, wouldn't it have been cheaper just to like, because I have friends in LA, I could have just stayed in LA. If you wanted me to be at the finale, then why didn't you just ask me? Or put me up in a hotel, which is like $100 a night and call it a day. And they're like, yeah, we didn't plan that ahead well. And I was like,
Yeah,
all
think.
right, then I do. So I'm like, no. So that's why at the finale, there's like a weird group of heroes. Totally why. Anybody that flew back either lives there, right? Or they flew back on their own time. Hmm.
Um, so let's go back to the start of the show.
Yeah.
How excited were you on that first day of just getting in there with everybody and such likes?
Oh my God, it was great. So the very first day, it's actually funny because they put us up in this hotel, but we're not allowed to talk to each other. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and they don't want us to see each other. So we're literally wearing blindfolds in our full super suits, blindfolded, sitting in a van for probably like an hour. Like then, like it was kind of crazy because I could tell who was in the car because I knew some of their voices already.
Hmm.
So I was like, "Great." She's like, "Shut up," and I was like, "Okay." And then we just kind of like talking like that, and that was kind of an entertaining thing. But the very first time when we get to like reveal ourselves and kind of like have our little moment and stuff, surreal is the only thing that comes to mind because like being a fan of the show on season one,
Hmm.
like when I stepped into the hero's lair on season two, I was like, dear God, I'm in the hero's lair. I'm in the hero's lair. Anyone? No, nobody. Okay. I'm just gonna sketch the pictures on the wall because I want to remember what they look like. So I'm like there with the pencil and paper, like sketching the walls because I wanted to remember what it was, and like it was ridiculous. It was
Do
crazy.
you know the worst of it? I still can picture, like, anytime I close my eyes, I can literally picture the beds that you guys slept in,
It was
you know?
bad.
And that's like the most weird thing, you know. Um,
I was shocked when I got there for the beds because it's literally a giant room with 10 twin-sized beds in it. I've never slept in anything but, oh my God, I can't even remember the last time I slept in anything but a king. And I was like, what? By myself, by the way. So then I have like one pillow that fits in my twin bed that I'm too tall for. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. So then Diffuser, he's super tall. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
he's like, I cannot sleep in this bed. So he, every night, would move his whole entire mattress into the library, like the room with all like the library stuff,
mhm.
and sleep in the living room and the library because he just couldn't sleep on the whole entire bed. So I was like, ridiculous. And then every morning you'd have to move it back. And I was like, crazy. Crazy, crazy. Yep. For the first
Oh,
episode, by the way, they spelled my name wrong, so it was kind of fun because my name kept changing. Because originally it
I
was
noticed that.
Paragon, then I was Pantheon for like an hour, and then I was Parthenon. But they spelled it wrong on the show because literally it was the night before that they had to like rename me. So I was like, oh my, okay.
I actually noticed that, like,
Hmm.
it kind of, like, I think it's in the first episode or two, your name changes like three times, and I'm like, okay, so
Right.
do they know what this guy's name is?
No, I know they made me change it because I was originally Paragon because it fit because it's an unfaltered gemstone. All my powers
Hmm.
were gemstone based. Like it was a whole big thing. And then they're like, we can't do that anymore because the name is copyright. And I'm like, what? And it was Paragon City from the oh gosh, the online hero game,
Yeah,
right?
which sadly is now offline.
Right? I know they took it off. Which is funny though, because you should talk to Diffuser about it, because Diffuser was one of the main people for that, and he was leveled up, and it was super fun, so it was good. Um, but so they made me change it. Well, then they're like, okay, well, it's gonna be Pantheon. I'm like, what? So then, literally in the hotel room the night before, I'm Googling on my phone. I'm like, what is Pantheon and how do I fit it to my character? Right? So I rewrite my whole entire backstory the night before. And then they call me an hour and a half later and they're like, oh, we made a mistake. Your name is Parthenon. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's like 12:30 at night. I had to be up at 8 in the morning to start filming. And I'm like, okay, Parthenon it is. And I'm like, so the very first thing that we had to film is these opening things for the opening credits. So literally you strike a hero's pose and you're like, I'm Parthenon. So then get up there. The other heroes are all watching you, right? And I'm like, I'm Paragon. And the guy's like, no, you're Parthenon. And I was like, oh, right. I forgot. Okay. So I kept forgetting my name for probably like 4 days. I kept calling myself Paragon, and every single producer's like Parthenon. And I was like, so I had to refilm everything, and I was like, damn it.
Do you know the best of it? If I ever get into a position like that, I would write it on my hand.
Right?
You know, so I could just look at my hand and go, I'm Parthenon.
Parthenon. I know.
And
for the longest time, I couldn't even spell my own name. It was crazy.
Don't
I
worry.
never call me Parthy on the show because I'm like, I can remember that. Parthy. It's good. It's cute. Call me Parthy. So some of the actual heroes, like I'm still talking to them all the time, they call me Parthy still. Yeah.
Awesome.
Because for the longest time, we didn't know each other's names, like our real names.
Do you know the best of it? That comes across on the show as well.
Yeah.
Like you guys really didn't know what each other were called, and it takes a while before he's actually clicked to it.
Yep.
I think
Can I tell you-
Hyena was the only person that we knew from the start, and you guys knew as well, because she was very adamant of her name is Hygiena, you know.
Right.
And it just kind of went along that way, and everybody just referred to her as Hygiena, and it was like, yeah, okay.
See, my whole plan for the whole show was to be the detective of the bunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew a lot of the people going onto the show, so I kind of like started Googling them beforehand, because a lot of them are like Googleable, right?
Yeah.
And then, but any chance I could do anything in the lair, I was like, I'm gonna do it. So like I would try to look for secret passageways in the lair, and I was like move things, and I would just kind of like look at objects, and I was like trying to figure out what it was going to be. So like one of the things that I did, and actually nobody knows this, but I think it's hilarious, is we all had luggage, right? Because our luggage, they all had our names on it. So I got everybody's real name, and I totally wrote them down because I'm like, haha, secret identities. It was because I just wanted to know what they were. So it was
I'm
entertaining.
guessing that's how you found out about Braid's job as well.
We actually met during the auditions. So we were. The funny thing is none of us were supposed to talk to each other during auditions. Like, but they never told the people that were watching us to not let us talk to each other. Like Hyperstrike and I, and this guy called CPA, which by the way, his name is Certified Public Ass Kicker. That was his real superhero name, CPA, and he was dressed in like the suit and tie, and like a calculator was his weapon that he would throw at people. And we all went to the Liberated Tar Pits together, like because we were just hanging out in LA because they didn't tell us we couldn't. So we were like, all right. So I got a picture of all of us hanging out at the tar pits, and they're like, oh, you guys weren't supposed to know each other at all. And I was like, too late for that. So I'm like, oops.
Oopsie. Okay, I'm just trying to think of other questions now. Being on the show with Stan Lee, like Stan is a legend when it comes to comic books.
Love it.
And even though I'm not a massive Marvel fan, I have to admit I'm a bit more of a DC fanatic.
Ending the interview. Ding, ding,
I do respect a lot of the stuff that Stan's done with his work on Spider-Man, the Hulk, X-Men, and various other projects that he's done. What was it like for you meeting him?
Yeah. So for the longest time, we never actually got to meet Stan. We got to talk to him through the TV monitors. So what you see on the show, it's literally how that was. Like anytime we dealt with him, it was projected on a screen, or like there was a television where he was in a separate spot, so we never crossed paths. It wasn't until like the second week when we did all the promo videos that we were all in the same spot at the same time. So we actually got seen him physically because we had to be for the photographs. And he was like in the break room and stuff, but we weren't really allowed to talk to him. But if you talk to the diffuser, he's got a funny story about it. But I don't. So the first time I actually got to talk to him was the premiere party. And so we got to hang out for a little bit. I have some really good pictures from it. And then it's just, he's just super down to earth and nice. Like, and super like intelligent and sharp-witted, right? But the funny thing is some of it's scripted because, like he's the host of the show, so that's going to be written, right? But the parts that he had to read, painful, because he's like, what am I reading now? Nah. And then he's like, forget it. And then he would just be like, here's what I'm talking about. And then he would actually like do it like how he just off the cuff.
Organically, yeah,
Oh my
organically.
God, he's super good at organic, but it was like, yes, because he's just nice talking face to face. Like he's actually funny.
One
Like
of the
some of the
things
stuff on the show that was never seen was one of my favorite parts was us talking to Stan. Like he's just super fast.
one of the things
And
that John mentioned in his interview with
hmm,
when I asked that particular question was that like yourself, Stan is so down to earth and he's very like quick on the draw. Um, but he's such a nice person as well. Like you really could ask him any question that you wanted to, and if he could answer it, he would.
a
You
thousand
know,
percent. And when fans go see him, like for photographs and stuff like that, he'll try to take as much time as he can, like for each person, and he'll like honestly try to like meet them and stuff. And I'm like, that's impressive. Like I got the opportunity to hang out with him, and he has his own comic book convention. It
hmm
used to be called Stanley's Comic Con, wait, Kamikaze Con, but now I
hmm
think it's just called Stanley's Comic Con. I think literally it just changes here. But we went there for our reunion for the show. So one of my favorite memories is we're sitting in the backstage green area, and I'm just at the table, and it's me, Basura, and Stanley eating cookies, just chatting, and it was just like, I'm eating cookies with Stanley, not freaking out, not freaking out. Yeah, he's just a normal person. So, yeah.
How intimidating was it when you actually first met him in the flesh? Is there any kind of funny stories there that you can tell?
Oh, it is that true fanboy because, like, I am a super nerd. Like, I know it doesn't, like, some people don't really know, but, like, I'm super nerdy, right? So, literally, my only thing that I had to do was try to suppress everything that I wanted to do. Probably that was going to be about it. Because if I just let it go, I'd be like, oh my God, and this is thing, blah, blah, blah. And can you record a phone message for me? Because I want you as my outgoing message, and I want to take pictures with you. And I was like, no, wait, be cool, be cool, be cool, be cool. Be like, thanks for having me on your show. And I tried to come across as the most level-headed, down to like, no, it's fine, it's good. I respect you, I like your work, it's good. But I was like, inside, dying. The fanboy is me is like screaming, and I'm like, shh.
I
Okay.
can actually, I'm going to admit this on camera. When I did an interview with John and doing one with yourself and then probably doing one with Hygiena and with Diffuser, I'm
Yep.
totally like on the surface I'm probably like really, really calm. But guys, really internally, I am going nuts. Like my inner child is just going, yes, yes, yes. You know?
I love it.
Um, so I'm assuming
But see, I think most people, the weird thing is like being on TV, people think that you're going to be one thing,
mhm.
but they forget that you're a normal person sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I have a job. I go to work every day. I'm a teacher. Like, my students come into my class. They used to be, like, when the show first came on, they're like, are you a teacher? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, how are you teaching? What are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is what I do. It's like, that's my job. I'm a teacher. And they're like, oh, it was very entertaining for the while. But now it's kind of like died down a little. People kind of forget, so it's kind of nice. So,
Um, so working with Stan Lee, did you pick up any kind of tips and hints from him?
uh, he, I would just say, is graceful. Quite honestly, like the way he deals with fans is the way I wanted to be with fans. So,
hmm
like, honestly, anybody that's ever come see me at a Comic Con, I'll take as many pictures as they want. I had free autographs because I had headshots, but then I made my school pay for them because I was like department chair. So I'm like, listen, we had our own print shop, right? So it didn't really cost much. But I'm like, if you print my photograph on the one side, I'll let you put your school's advertisement on the back side of it, and then you can totally get like advertising for it. So they're like, deal. So I printed like a couple thousand like headshot things. So I was like, yes. So I never had to pay for them, right?
hmm
And I was already going to be at the convention anyway. So I never really charged them for any kind of travel because that was already something I was doing. So literally they would just come up and be like, oh, well, I would really like to take a picture with you. How much is it? And I'm like, no, it's free. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, because I am a bigger fan of my fans than I think they are of me. Because like being going to the cons for so long, like I know what it is. You know what I mean? Like you have to stand in line for 30 minutes to wait for somebody to sign an autograph. That's $50, and you're like, and it's a big thing. You know what I mean? Because the experience is the fun part of it. But I didn't need the money, and it wasn't actually costing me anything besides my time. And so then I'm
Mhm.
like, just take it. The people are like
I
freaked out.
actually, I have a funny story for you on this one.
Yeah.
Um, when I went to Comic Con last year, like this year, I should say, 2016, guys, because I don't know when this interview will air. It's probably going to be 2017 when it airs. Um, but the not only was James Masters there, who played Spike on Buffy, Sean Astin was there as well.
Oh, nice.
And I had the iGame Online business cards with me because I got them sent out to me and they're like, you're going to Comic Con, take the cards with you. And I'm like, okay. So all I wanted to do, and that's a business card for anybody who wants to see it. Um, all I wanted to do at the end of the day was go and see what celebrities were left because there were two Power Rangers there. And my
Oh, nice.
cousin's friend didn't believe us when we said that these guys were going to be here. So we're like, if we go there, we'll catch them at the end and maybe ask them, hey, can we just like take a quick picture of you and send it to this guy who just doesn't believe that you're here? Unfortunately, those guys had left by that point.
Ah,
And I was like, well, I said to my cousin, well, we could go and see James Massos. So we went down that way and there were a queue a mile long
right.
to see him. And I'm like, I'm not standing here. I'm cold. I'm tired. I just want to go. But I know that Sean Astin's here, so let's try and see him.
Hmm.
So we run along to the other end, and he's still there. And I'm like, okay, I need a card. So my cousin gives me out a card, and I walk up to the Sean, and this big burly security guard, probably the complete size of the diffuser, stops me and said, "Oh, I'm really really sorry. Like he's finished for the day." And I said to him, "Look, dude, you're tired. I'm tired. I've been here since like 9 o'clock in the morning. I am exhausted. All I want to do is give him this card and go home."
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, but well, yeah, that's okay, but I'm really, really sorry. He's finished." And as all this is going on, Sean is like sitting there signing autographs for the following day. And
Hmm.
he sees me talking to this security guard and he calls me over. And I'm still in costume at this point.
Right.
So he calls me over and I says, look, I know you're tired. I know you're probably hungry. And I know that you probably want to go off and talk to your family via Skype or telephone call or whatever. All
Right.
I want to do is just hand you this business card and go. And he's still signing and he just kind of looks up at me and then kind of stops. And he says to me, so what's your story then? And
Right.
I look down at myself and say, well, Poison Ivy had a one night stand and I'm the result.
You're poison
Got the,
Ivan. There you go.
yeah, I got the biggest smile out of him ever. And I said, okay, I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I want to go home. Here's the business card. And I told him a little bit about the website and said, we have currently a Lord of the Rings role playing session online happening. And I know it will mean a lot to the guys if I passed you the business card and told you about that one aspect of the website.
Hmm.
And he pulls over a picture of himself as Sam and he
Oh,
signs it. Now, I don't know what the currency exchange is here, but
right.
over here it was like £25, which let's say roughly translates into $25.
Sure.
Um, that's how much it would have cost me to get his autograph. He
Hmm.
signs the picture and he says, right, here. And he hands me a picture of him. And I'm like fumbling about because I had my wallet on me and I'm like fumbling about trying to get money. He says, no, no, it's all right, just take it.
Right.
I was the only person that I know that got a signed photograph for nothing that entire day. And I was like, get in, you know.
Right. But see, that's because like you had a backstory and like you were a true fan of it. You're not like there because of like he's famous. You're like the character and you're like, hey, I like your character. Bam. There you go.
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it was still great to actually get the chance to sit and, well, not sit and talk to him, but just tell him, hey, I appreciate you're tired. I'm tired too. So
Right.
let's just call it a compromise. Here's a card.
Right.
um, so yeah,
That's
that kind of
fantastic.
thing's
Yep.
always really cool.
I love it.
But getting back to working with
Sure.
Stan,
Yeah.
how was that for you? Because obviously Stan, with you being a Marvel fan,
Right.
Stan's like the big cheese,
He is indeed.
who is not cheese shaped at all. He's person shaped. But how is that aspect of working on the show as a fan for you?
Um, as a fan, it's crazy is the only real way to say it, because like anybody that's just like, well, what were you on the show, what show was it, and I'm like, well, do you know who Stan Lee is? There's no one that I've ever said that to is like, no, I have no idea who Stan Lee is, because he's that famous, because he's so iconic of a person that it's almost like I can't believe that I know him. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I actually have his email, like, because it's one of those things that I'm like, if I ever needed to, I could probably just email Stan Lee. And how many people can actually say that? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's super weird. Like, super weird. The Diffuser actually has a lot more fun stories, because the Diffuser, after the show, he became like an announcer for Wizard World.
Hmm.
So like he could do like some panels and stuff like that. So he got to hang out with Stan all the time, which made me super jealous. But he's gonna have fantastic stories for literally good
Everything.
stories with Stan. Yeah, my favorite thing is I went to Comic-Con in San Diego one year, and I was in the LGBT panel, and
Uh-huh.
so right, and so Stan actually came into it as a surprise, because he was oh gosh, Perry Moore wrote a book,
Hmm.
and I think it was Invincible. Ah, it's literally on my shelf. I should just go look at it. Anyway, so it's all about like a kid who's gay and like his superhero dad and stuff like that, kind of living up to it. And Stan wanted to partner with him to actually make it more of a thing. And so he actually came into the panel and was like doing a little spiel in the LGBT panel. And then he's like, blah, 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 Parthenon. And I was like, yes. Because I was just like, it's so good. Because I was just like, it can't be better than this. Getting a call out and a shout out from Stanley. And I'm like, yes.
How is
So,
it? Now this is going to be a bit of an awkward question, so
sure.
please don't hold it against me. Um, but how is it? How was it coming out on the show?
Sure.
What was what was your kind
I
of feelings and thoughts behind that?
Right. I knew I was going to be out in the show, because I put that in my thing. Like, I put in my backstory that I was gay. Like, my character was gay. Like, I knew that I wanted it to be a thing. But I knew I'm a big fan of reality TV. Let me put it
Hmm.
that way, right? And I didn't want it to be, I'm the gay superhero, so glitter and rainbows and stuff like that. Like, I want it to be, hey, I'm a kick-ass hero who, by the way, just happens to be gay. And so that's what I told the producers. And the producers were like, that is a fantastic spin on it. Yes, please say that. And it honestly was never really a thing. You know what I mean? Because it's just honestly who I am. So,
Hmm.
like, I told my whole family about it. So the interesting thing about it was the guy that I was seeing at the time, we were together for almost 4 years. Um, he was not out to his family. And I had a awkward conversation with him, and I was just like, do you want me to be single on the show? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can just say that I'm not seeing anyone. You know what I mean? If you don't want it to be a thing. And
Hmm.
he's like, you know what? He made the conscious choice of, no, you know what? I want you to go ahead and say it, because I want like people to know that we're great. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. So when I won the phone call home and I got to like chat with him, the last thing I said was, I love you, right? Because that's how you end a phone call with somebody that you love. And so that one moment actually got the whole show nominated for a GLAAD Award, which was the Sci-Fi's first ever time getting nominated for a gay award. Um, just for that one simple thing of having like a gay character. And it was interesting, because this is right before like they had anything. Now I watch all their shows online, and there's so many gay characters on all their shows now that it's finally becoming more commonplace. But 10 years ago, it really wasn't, you know? So it's interesting, because I've had a lot of people come up to me at cons and tell me about it as well. So
Hmm.
they have their own coming out story, and they're like, because of you, like I felt more comfortable to be myself. And like, I always find those like super touching as like a moment, because like it's truly like something that I know that made a difference, which, but just by being myself and by being true to who I was and by showing that on TV, kind of a thing, you know? So it's kind of like, it's always an interesting thing.
Hmm.
So like one of my actual good friends now, here's a funny story, so I'm totally gonna call him out. Sorry, Chad. Um, so he used to watch a show when he was not out to his family, and he used to watch it, and he really liked my character. And then years later, he actually got to meet me in person, and then he's like, to a common friend of mine, because he works together with somebody else, and so he's like, "Was that Parthenon?" And my friend's like, yeah, totally Parthenon. And he's like, oh my God, I love Parthenon. So cut to like a couple more years later, we're now really good friends, like actual friends. And he was swimming in my pool one day and he goes, I have to admit something. And he goes, I used to love your character. And if you had ever told the young me that I'd be swimming in Parthenon's pool, I would have thought you'd been ridiculous. But like, it's one of those like weird coming out kind of like touching somebody and then becoming friends with somebody. Like it's a weird moment. It was actually it's quite nice. So I really enjoy it.
I can completely sympathize with that particular moment
Yeah.
because like back when I was watching the show and you did come out, it like I'm gonna have to explain this really, really quickly and then get to the point that I was making. Um, we all had an inkling that one of the characters on season 2 was going to be gay,
Sure.
and I was kind of a little bit concerned about it personally because we come from a very traditional country type of world, and a
Hmm.
lot of people back then were very close-minded.
Yep.
You know, like I've known some of the older generation from my family quit watching a show because a character was gay.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
it could have been their most favorite show in the entire world. It could have been a soap opera that they watched for years, but as soon as that gay character was introduced, it was like gone.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot more about season 2 um, before my cousins did. Like I knew who was going to be on the show,
Right.
that kind of thing, because I was like, I need to know more. When I heard season 2 was announced, I was like, okay, I'm looking it up. Um, and when I read, like, they didn't say who it was, but they said there is going to be an openly gay character. I was
Hmm.
so scared to the way that my cousins would react because I was
Right.
like, I don't want them to quit watching the show because it just because a character is gay doesn't mean to say it's what makes the show revolve, you know.
Sure. Absolutely.
Um, so when they had, and the really fun thing was they had the total interesting reaction to it. Like when they found out that there was going to be a gay character, they were like, okay, well, we're still going to watch it, which I was like, oh, thank God. And then when it was announced it was yourself, that was what I found really interesting because I kind of watched the episode before I took it down to my cousins. I was like, I need to know. But I didn't watch it. I watched it like up until the part where these guys were on the blocks, you know, because I didn't want to waste everything. Um, so when I watched that part, I was like, okay. So it's like because you were my oldest cousin's favorite character on the show, I was like, okay, this is gonna go one of two ways, and I can see this. His reaction was, oh, so he's the gay one. Cool. And I was like, what? What? But it was so great to see his reaction of not caring, you know,
Exactly.
and I
Yep.
loved that part about it. You know, it was just like he doesn't care. You know, it's you're still his favorite character. You know, it was just like I could literally just grabbed my cousin and hugged him right there. I was like, you're an adult. You're more adult than most adults. So well done.
Absolutely.
Um, were
I love
you
how not of an issue it was. Like nobody ever mentioned it. Nobody was like, wasn't really a thing. So it's kind of like, I like it.
was
It's
that
good.
something that you might have been um, apprehensive of, like on the show?
You know what? No, because I've always been really comfortable with who I was, and so I didn't want to change who I was for that kind of reason, for anything about it. So I'm always like slightly animated, as you can tell, like jazz hands and everything like that. So I'm not really gonna dial it back down. You know what I mean? So just so I can do it. But I also didn't want to turn up the flame a lot, just to be like, yay, unicorns and stuff like that. So like I really wanted it to I think it only came up in like maybe 2 episodes is the only time out of all of them that it ever was mentioned. It was in the very first episode, so I got like who I was, and then the one with my partner and I think that was literally the only time that it's ever actually came up in the show, but that's the only time it should have come up. Like it shouldn't have been a thing. No one should. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mhm.
glad with how they handled it because nobody really mattered. Like nobody cared at all. None of the heroes
So,
cared. Like they're like, yeah, you're Dan. Well, you're Parthy, but absolutely. And
so
from the
who
reactions of the fans, they've been great. Like absolutely.
You've mentioned a few people that you were very, very close with on the show. Who do you feel you didn't get that big of a connection with, but would have liked to have had a better connection with on the show?
You know, that I would like to have had a better connection with is probably the key word for that. It's actually probably mindset. I got to hang out with him a couple different times afterwards, but he left really early, and he was very guarded on the show because I think he really had who his character was, and he was not going to go from it.
Hmm.
Like, but we had hilarious conversations, and he's actually a hilarious guy. Like, he actually drove up here for one of my viewing parties because he lived in Southern Florida at the time. But
Hmm.
then I kind of lost track of him, and it's
Do you
really
know,
kind of that one.
this is so funny. Like John said the exact same person. He's
Yeah.
like the one person that I felt I could have really gotten the chance to sit down with and talk to more was Mindset, and he didn't
Mhm.
get that chance because Mindset
Yeah.
left so early. And
Yeah.
the one thing that John did actually mention about Mindset, and I'm pretty sure you'll comment on it as well, was
Hmm.
the original costume that
Oh,
Mindset had.
oh my
Like
God.
you could tell that he was a definite cosplayer. You know,
Totally. And he was a super big nerd. Like, he was into video games. Like, we sat and talked for quite a long time. It was me, him, and the diffuser because we'd be like comic books, and we'd be like comic books because we were like the nerdy crew. And like Melanie is nerdy, but she's like fandom nerdy. So she
Mhm.
would kind of join in, and we'd be like, and talking all back and forth. So it was kind of fun.
By
Like,
the
so
way,
we get that kind of stuff.
comic books.
Yeah. Comic books.
Comic books.
Comic books. Because
Ah, comic books.
comic books. I love But yeah, so
Um,
I would say mindset probably. Yeah.
was there anybody else that you don't need to mention who, but was there
Okay.
anybody on the show that you didn't get on with?
Mm, well, I think it's fairly well known that Mitzvah and I never really did it because Mr. Mitzvah, he, I met him at the auditions,
Hmm.
and he came across as super weird at the auditions because he was actually auditioning as his singer superhero, Peaceman, which but then he wouldn't say anything else, which I thought was strange. So then I started Googling him. So I knew his whole backstory when I met him. And then he had no idea what his powers were. Like, his suit was made for him. Like, I felt like he was there for the wrong reasons. And then he almost always kept to himself. So he's never part of the group. So, like, I thought he was like a plant for quite a long time, to be quite honest. Like, I was convinced he was going to be the one that flipped and became like a villain. So I was kind of like, I don't know. And then when it came out, like, he was the millionaire, right? Uh, they're like, "Are you surprised?" And in like an interview, and I was like, "No, I've known." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "I've known since the auditions." And they're like, "How the hell did you know since the auditions?" And I'm like, "Because I looked up his character, Peaceman, figured out his name, Googled him, and that was it." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Was that a surprise?" And they're like, "Yes," because I was one of their first interviews. And then I'm like, "I told all the other heroes that on day number one." And they're like, "What? Where's this at?" And so they were kind of perturbed because I was like, "I didn't know." It was just like, oh.
Do you,
Uh,
do you feel like he was possibly one of the more misunderstood people on the show?
uh, I think he's misunderstood by himself more than anything because I think he was there for the wrong reason. Honestly, the wrong reason. Like, because then he went on to do a couple different shows, but they were all like weird shows. Like, one was a throw my party kind of a show, and I was like, what? So I think he really just wanted to become more well known and any way possible,
Hmm.
right? But I think they cast him on the show because of who he was, nothing to do with his character, which as a nerd, like, it made me mad because I'm like, your character is made up. You don't even know your powers. You have a ping pong paddle for a weapon that you have no idea what it is or the name of your weapon. And I'm like,
Hand in your nerd
okay.
card. Hand in the nerd card. You know?
Right? I mean, it is because, like, at one point, like, we argued quite a lot because, quite honestly, like, I don't mind a little bit of arguing, especially if it's like fun, kind of friendly arguing.
Hmm.
So one time I was calling him out in his costume, and I'm like, "What the hell is your costume anyway? Well, like, what is your paddle?" And he goes, "Jimmy, do you even have a name for it?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's the Intergalactic Magic Mystery Paddle." And I was like, "Okay, just so you know that I'm going to remember that forever." So there you go. So anytime I said anything with him, he'd hold up his little panel, and I'd be like, "Oh, you mean your intergalactic magical mystery panel?" And he's like, shut up. It's like, no,
Okay, we'll be right back, guys. So,
yeah,
oh, 5, 4, 3, and we're back. So you felt that Mr. Mitzvah was there for the wrong reasons, which
yeah.
kind of made him very misunderstood, and you kind of didn't get on with him a little bit. Was there anybody else on the show that you didn't get on with?
No, honestly, everyone else was super fun, and I still talk to most of them like on a fairly regular basis still. So like we're all friends on Facebook. We chat back and forth.
Really?
Hygiena just came down here to Orlando. Probably a couple months ago with her daughter, who's adorable. So you have to ask her about her, Sparkle Girl, and her husband. So then I met him at Universal. We hung out for the whole entire day. It was super fun. Diffuser sometimes comes down here. He stays at my house, so it's kind of entertaining. I've been to his house, went to his haunted house the one time. It was super good.
You were
Yeah.
telling me about that that's something that he does, and why it would be quite kind of difficult to get a hold of him because I have contacted him as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
September and October, just write him off. It's
well,
impossible.
I might be able to get him somewhere before December, hopefully this year, 2016, guys. But I have so much on that it's kind of insane. Um, there was one character on the show, and I can't remember whether this is season 1 or season 2,
Okay.
that I just did not get. And I was wondering if you were the same because I remember asking my cousins about it, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't get that person either." Miss Limelight.
Ah, she's actually one of my favorites.
Right.
She's
Now,
super. So,
it
go and
wasn't
ask
for,
your question. I'll finish mine.
okay, it wasn't for our lack of trying, like, because we
Right.
we gave everybody equal opportunity on the show. We were like,
Sure.
okay, these people are here to essentially plead their case to Stanley. And if
Right.
he's giving them equal opportunity, then so do we. We're not going to instantly like somebody. And she was just the one that I don't know what it was. Like, I personally just couldn't get behind what she was. I seen her as this kind of like typical valley girl that just kind of showed up one day in a costume and decided, oh, I'm going to be famous. And it was one of the things that held me back about her. I understood that
Sure.
she was like there, and she really wanted to compete, but I just felt she
Right.
didn't glue with the rest of you guys. So,
She's so yes and no, but your story is fairly accurate actually. But she was still super young at the time, right?
uh-huh.
And so she was a little naive, but coming from such a good place that once you actually get to meet her and know her, you'll instantaneously fall in love. It's impossible not to. She's one of those people, like she's super like genuinely nice,
hmm
you know? And so you're willing to forgive a lot of different weird stuff. You know?
One of the things
Like
that I actually came across on the show was just how nice she was as an individual.
she is.
You know,
Like they specifically told us to never get off those boxes, the elimination boxes. But when she got let go, we all jumped off our boxes and had to go hug her. We totally got yelled at for it, but we were like, sorry, like can't not do it. So no. But yeah, she's one of my favorites. So
I do
I
believe
actually
that
stayed at her house for when I went to the premiere party. It
I
was
do
kind of
believe
fun.
that she's doing a YouTube channel now.
She's a famous YouTuber. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. So
Um, I'm gonna see what I can do. Like, I haven't had the chance to contact her at this point, but I will try.
oh yeah.
And see
She's
if
been on a
she.
lot more TV shows too. Like she's been on America's Got Talent. She was on a music video for Eminem. She's done a lot of stuff.
Um, I'll see what I can do to get a hold of her and if she's available at some point. Because again, that would be another person that has been on the show that I've had the chance to talk to.
I would actually
Um,
love to hear her story about it because we've talked about it a couple different times. Because I was super close with her in the house, so
mhm.
like I helped her with a lot of her stuff. She was one of the other ones that didn't really have a quite good grasp on her backstory, so we kind of helped her write it and stuff, and so that kind of like
So
interesting.
talk about that particular aspect, because to my credit, I love writing backstories for characters.
Yeah.
Like when I was big into wrestling, I was a very big fan of the Hardy Boys in general.
Okay.
And I totally wrote a backstory for a character that ended up being in a computer game because the video games back then you could create your own characters and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my own. And
Right.
I then wrote stories for that character, and I'd make other characters connected to that character, and it was like a full backstory.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm guessing that you guys had to do a similar aspect. Is that something that you enjoy doing, or was it
I
just
do.
something like,
I love anything creative and design wise, and
mhm,
so I came up with the whole entire backstory first because I liked the idea of it, and then I actually built everything off the backstory. So like because I think that's how you should do it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there we go. So then once I had the backstory done, his powers, his weapons, then I actually sketched pictures of what I want my costume to be like. From that, I made the costume. From then, it kind of all flippy flopped, right? But because they had to change my name, I changed my backstory slightly, like on the fly. So that was kind of a fun thing. But most of the other heroes had fairly legit backstories where they knew what it was. But we almost all had to alter them at one point. So it's kind of like how to spin it on the fly and how to make it better because then we had to present it, right? But a lot of us had never talked about it. So we sat there and we had whole conversations about our backstories and our powers and blah, blah, blah. And it was just kind of fun. But I helped a lot of them with them because I enjoy that kind of stuff. Like once I didn't make it on season 1 with my original character, I did make 2 other ones. Full backstories, full sketches, like full powers. Like it was fun. My favorite one was Brace because at the time, I actually wore a back brace because I had been into an accident, and so I thought it'd be fun to kind of turn a negative into a positive. So I was going to make his back brace the source of his powers. So
awesome.
yeah, it's
Um,
kind of fun.
I will actually show you this picture later on, but that particular story has just reminded me of Barbara Gordon when she becomes Oracle.
Yes. Yep.
And I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate to see a girl dress as Barbara Gordon as
Nice.
Oracle at my last Comic Con.
That's cool.
And she was in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
And at first I thought, oh, she's just in a prop, you know, because like when you do go to Comic Cons, you see so many people, you know, and my initial thought when I seen this girl was like, yeah, she's in a prop, you know.
Right.
But when I got talking to her, she said, you know, I'm actually disabled, and I decided to turn my disability into a costume, essentially.
Absolutely.
And do you know the thing that broke my heart about it when I spoke to her? She mentioned that I was the first person to come up to her that entire day
Hmm.
and the only person who asked for a photograph of her.
Nice.
And I was like, that
Right.
literally broke my heart so much because the
It broke
character,
my heart, but you're the one person who knew it that
exactly,
totally made the costume right. So like
yeah.
that's cool.
It broke my heart in that way because
Right.
I was like, the character is such an iconic character,
I
you know.
agree.
And dare I say it, I actually prefer Barbara Gordon when she is Oracle over when she's Batgirl. You know,
I
because she
agree.
just makes such a better impact then.
Hmm.
And it goes to show you, you know, just because you have a disability doesn't mean to say that you are disabled,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yep.
And I feel that that's one of the biggest messages that any disability should get across, you know.
Yep.
Like DC does that with a plethora of characters, as does
Sure.
Marvel. And
Yep.
the
Like
big
Daredevil is one of the most well known. You know.
exactly, you know,
Yeah.
which is why I will say this now on camera, which is why
Hmm.
I'm always wary when I'm with a blind person because
Hmm.
I watch what I say to them.
Ha.
I never lead them the wrong way. If they ask me, can you lead me to the right? I will do my best to do that.
Right.
Because I don't know if they are actually a ninja in disguise, and therefore I don't want them kicking my ass. You know?
Love it.
So having seen Daredevil, guys, never ever lead a blind person in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. But I always like it when people use their disabilities to their advantage.
Hmm.
I saw a couple more like comic book conventions, but even for this Halloween, my family went to the Magic Kingdom for the Not So Scary Party,
Hmm.
and there was somebody dressed as her wheelchair was Cinderella's coach. It lit up. It was the most beautiful thing I ever seen. I had to stop and take her picture. Like her people that were with her was like the mice from Cinderella, and it was just like it was amazing. It was truly amazing, and I was just like, yes. But then I was at Dragon Con, and people dressed up all the time. I saw this one guy who was actually like in a wheelchair, but he was Professor X. But he decked out his wheelchair, and I was so amazed that I had to go talk to him about it. I'm like, did you make this wheelchair? And he goes, yeah, I decked out my wheelchair, and I made all this stuff for it. And I'm like, that's amazing. You look great. And he goes, I shaved my head for it. And I was like, that right there is commitment. Commitment.
Yeah.
Right. So I agree. Like, I think if you have something, use it to your advantage. 1,000%.
I have to admit that is one thing that I couldn't do. I would never be able to shave my head for a cosplay. I'd be like,
I
nope.
considered it. I usually have a beard now, but I shaved for a cosplay at Dragon Con, and everybody was just like, I can't believe you shaved. And I'm like, how could I be Milo from Atlantis with a beard? And I'm like, it doesn't really make sense.
Exactly.
So,
So let's get back to the show. What was one of your favorite challenges on the show?
what was one of my favorite challenges? I liked quite a lot, to be quite honest. But like, I thought they were all interesting. Like the spelling bee challenge is one that sticks out to me because it made me laugh because I called it, right? So they literally have TVs in the lair where they have like a live news broadcast, right? And then they tell us all about it, and they're like, this character's called Bee Sting. And I'm like, ah, crap. Because I knew it was either going to be bees, which I am not a fan of bugs, right? Or spelling, and I hate spelling because that's the one subject I'm not good at because I'm an engineer, so I've got math and science down pat. But spelling, I've never been good because I've had a cell phone or a computer to do like the spell check for me. So literally, we're on the way there, and I'm like, I just know this is going to suck. It's going to suck. So then they're like, get trapped in here. Now it's a spelling bee with real bees. And I'm like, how could it be the two things that I don't want to happen at once? And I'm like, forget it. But I knew it. I knew it. But we got through it, and then it's funny because they made us answer like a lot of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed 2 out of like the 6 that they asked me, but that's the only ones they showed on TV. So I'm like, really? You're going to make the instructor the one that's going to not answer the question right? Because everybody else didn't answer them right, but they're like, correct, correct, correct. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. It's okay. All right. But when the honey dumped on us, I saw it coming too. You can actually see it somewhat in the video because we were in a plastic box, and I saw the reflection up, and I was like, ah, crap, because I knew it was coming like a thing. So I take my cape and I wrap it around me. So literally all the honey got on the outside of my outfit. So my outfit was pristine. My gauntlet wasn't touched. Like the only thing I had to do was wash my cape, and my cape was washable. So like if you look the next day after it, they're like, your costumes suck. And I'm like, actually, mine's pretty good. I'm like, I'm okay. I can wear this. And everybody else is like, no. Like it all got in limelight, had a fake wig. So then it was all stuck in her wig, and it was really painful, and it was really interesting. But we, as the heroes, should have probably wrote that show, by the way, because the amount of crap that we thought was going to happen and what should have happened was ridiculous. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, because we left. So we washed all of our clothes outside, right? Mm-hmm. Outside the lair. And then we left them down there to dry because that's what they told us to do. So once we got upstairs, we were like, why did we leave our costumes downstairs? And I'm like, what if villains are going to come and steal our weapons and steal our things, and they're going to go do evil things and pretend they're us because they can dress up as us? So then I was like, ah, crap. So we were like, should we sneak back down there? Because we're not really allowed to go downstairs. So we're like, we should maybe go get them. I'm like, I don't know about this. So I'm like, you know what they're probably going to have us do is they're probably going to have us make our own outfits out of stuff around the lair. So then we started like gathering supplies from around the lair, like what we could use for costume pieces. And like I had my backstory is like I had the Armor Guard gauntlet, but the whole entire thing is it starts as a bracelet that I can wear at any given point, and then I touch it and it goes and it becomes my Armor Guard. So I had my bracelet. So if you look, I'm actually wearing my bracelet in the one scene that I don't have my Armor Guard in because I'm like, I still have it, so nobody can take it because I just changed it into a bracelet form. And then people are like, so the producers, they have like live cameras and stuff, so they must be sitting there and like taking notes for next time. So I was like, season 3 is going to be great because they're like, yes, steal the clothes and do the stuff. And because we went so farther than it was supposed to go because we're all like nerdy people, so we kind of like went diving into it. So that kind of stuff.
So my last question about the show, is there anything that you would have done differently on the show, looking back on it?
You know what? I thoroughly enjoyed it. So even the episode I got voted out, I still did really well. So I'm kind of like, no, you know, I no, I really wouldn't do anything different because you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved every single thing I was there. I loved my time at that. I loved doing everything about it. So I would change nothing. Even screaming at the top of my lungs when I touched a snake in that one scene. So it was fine.
Luckily,
Which
that was edited down for TV. So
it really wasn't. That's the funny thing about it. Like I knew it because like when I was climbing through the darkened thing, like there was a pipe. Okay, so I ducked underneath the pipe because it's a red light and it flashes for like a second and then it goes off and it's completely pitch black. So you can go like this and you're like, dear God, there's giant spiders in the corner, there's rats on the floor. Okay, but there's a pipe here, so I don't want to run into it. So I'm like, okay, so I duck underneath the pipe. I grab the little fuse out of the box. I know there's a pipe there because I ducked under before, so I grabbed the pipe and there was a snake wrapped around the pipe. So I grabbed the snake and I'm like, bah! But I was like a really kind of like a funny scream.
the
And as soon as I got out of it, the producers are like, so you screamed. And I'm like, oh, crap. Because I knew it was going to come and I knew it was going to be a thing. And I was like, great. So that's why when Stan questioned me about it on the blocks, I already had an answer because literally I had probably like 4 hours to figure out an answer. So I came up with my thing that it was a battle cry. And I'm like, Stan, that was a battle cry. And literally, he laughed out loud and it was like probably 30 seconds. And I'm like, yes. But you don't really see it on the show because like they edited that part out.
the one
But
person, no, we did get the battle cry thing, and it's
yeah,
one of the things that we all kind of laughed at.
right.
The one person that I felt really sorry for in that challenge, I think, was Whipsnap,
Yeah.
because she was genuinely scared,
Yep.
like terrified.
She was
Um,
terrified of a lot of different stuff. But yes.
that one in particular, and it's easy to see why because a friend of mine actually owns a lot of exotic animals, and snakes is one of them. And
Yeah.
I remember going round to her house for, I think it was a Halloween party one year, and it got very late at night, and she asked me, because I live very far away from her,
Hmm.
she said, "Do you want to stay the night?" And I was like, "I will stay with you and your husband. I will stay with you and your kids. I will not stay with you and your 20-foot python and your tarantulas and your rats and your scorpions and like I
Right.
will literally I will cuddle up with your rabbits, your cats, your dogs, your birds, your fish,
Anything
all the
fluffy.
rest. But
Right.
anything that is like not of where we live, keep it away from me.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. My sister had a snake growing up, so she used to torment me with it because like older sisters.
yeah.
So I never liked snakes. They never liked them. So it was like, it was horrible.
Do you know the weirdest thing? Like the only exotic animal that I'm actually okay with, and I actually have a little thing that I can show off here, is geckos.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Nice.
cool with geckos. Like,
Yeah.
two of my friends actually have geckos,
Mhm.
and one of them, I went and seen it recently, and it's like this tiny little thing. It's like this big, so it's tiny, and
Mhm.
half the time it's like sitting underneath its rock, and you'll
Mhm.
tap on its cage or its box or whatever the hell you keep them in, aquarium, whatever, I don't know. You'll tap on it, and it just kind of like it'll look at you as if to say, "Why are you tapping? I
Right.
am aware of where you are. Now leave me the hell alone." And the best thing is, his name is actually Norman.
Nice.
And he's just like, he
I
actually,
want him to be the newt though. Instead of a gecko, he should be Norman the newt because that'd be great.
do you know the best of it? He's scared of his own dinner. Like, because they feed him crickets and he'll literally hide from the crickets. And it's like, dude, you're a predator. Eat them.
Right.
So
So
I'm convinced that somebody's not told this gecko that he's a gecko.
right. In Orlando, we have a lot of those kind of like little lizards. They're all over here. And so I used to have one that lived in my back patio all the time.
Hmm.
So he would always be curled up on the hose. So I named him Hoser, right? And so then, and he was always there for like probably a good month or so, right? And then one day he had a friend. So I was like, oh, you got a girlfriend? That's Josette. I was like, yes. So I don't really mind them either. I find those things, they sneak into houses all the time here. So like I have a specific like Tupperware container that's actually written on it lizard catcher, so that I can actually catch lizards, keep them live, and then put them back outside. So he's the one animal that I don't really mind either. So I'm with you on that one.
Awesome. So for the last resounding part of the show, because the show has kind of chunked up this interview, um, what was your reaction when they announced the winner? Because when I spoke to John, he mentioned that they filmed all three of them winning,
Oh, interesting.
but it wasn't until the actual kind of like live thing that they said, okay, it's Diffuser.
Right.
So they were totally kept in the dark at that particular point.
Sure.
What was your reaction when they announced the winners? You know, did you
That was,
see it coming or?
yeah. Honestly, day number one, I knew he'd win. It was like one of those things. Like I knew if I didn't, he would, because he was clearly a superhero. Like you know what I mean? Like clearly, he stands heads and shoulders above everybody. His job as a cop, he knows exactly what he's doing all the time. Like he's got that authoritative, like superhero presence. He's great. I knew it. You know what I mean? I would have been shocked if anyone else won.
How would
Shocked.
you have felt if Stan had kind of like, I don't honestly know how much of a role Stan had in the show.
Sure.
From what it looked like as a fan, you know, it looked as if Stan had just like those moments he had with you guys, and that was it. You know,
Right.
he had like executive producer like credit on the show, but other than that, it was just, you know, and
Right.
unless you know, like, because I have a background in media, you know,
Right.
unless you know what exactly an executive producer does, it's like, what really does an executive producer do? You know, it's just a name that pops
He
up,
executes.
you know. So, oh God, I've forgotten my question there. How would you have
How big of a
felt?
thing did Stan have with it?
No. How would you have felt if Stan had changed the rules when it got to the final four and said, right, okay, instead of narrowing it down to one, I've changed my mind. I'm not looking for no longer one person. I want a team.
That is funny. And can I tell you, I have actually I have a TV treatment, right? Because I used to work for an entertainment company as well. That is one of my things that I was actually wanting to happen. So if I had my own way, it would be a team thing. So, yep,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Because that's what like me and my cousins like when I suggested that, I said I
Yep,
really when it got to like the final four, I was like, I don't want to see any of them go. Like
yep,
I really don't. I want Stan to come on and say, this is going to be the new superhero team.
yeah,
I would have been like, don't get me wrong, I would have been absolutely pissed that they ended the show so early, but it would have made me happier because then we would have had all four of you as a
yeah.
team.
It's hard because if that's not the premise of the show, then it's hard to make it the premise of the show. Like if you say that's what you're doing at the beginning, then that's great. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell you offline mine because we'll share notes.
Okay.
But it would have been hard, and I think people would have been complaining about it because how a reality show works is there always has to be a clear winner. You know what I mean? So I don't think they would ever actually done it. You know what I mean? So like,
I know
but it
that
would have been fun.
they did continue the show over here at the very least. They did a children's version of the show
Right.
after season two had aired over in the United States. I don't know whether you guys got the children's version.
We didn't. I actually never
No?
seen it. Like, and it's weird because I love the show and I would have loved to seen it. The only thing I know about it is I googled it, and so I've seen some of the costumes and the picture of the kids and stuff.
Well, it really was children's TV at that point, you know.
Right.
So they made a lot of differences to the show, and I think what made the show was kind of lost when they did the third season, which is why I think they only got that over here, and then that was it, you know.
Right.
Um, if the producers of the show had to contact you again and said, "Okay, Dan, we're looking to do a third adult season,"
Sure.
would you come back as a recurring character? How would you answer that? Would you want to come back as Parthenon, or would you come back as a villain if they offered you
Ah,
a villain?
that's a good question. I would be torn because I love Parthenon, and so I would totally be Parthenon at any time. Flat out, right? Would I come back as a villain? Maybe, but I'd have to be somebody else besides a Parthenon, right? Would I come back as a different character? Absolutely, because I think creating characters and creating new costumes is always fun. So I don't mind creating a new persona because, like, I'm not stuck with one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm known as Parthenon. It's great. Could I be known as something else? Absolutely. And it's fun.
If they came to you and said, right, okay, we're bringing back the show, but we're changing the premise of it,
Mhm.
instead of like doing adults and then children, we're going to try and get like a mid-range, so like a sidekick, and we
Sure.
want you to mentor somebody.
Yeah,
Would you be up for that as well?
absolutely. My job in general is a professor at a college, right?
Hmm.
So mentoring people is what I do. And I have an extensive background in comic books and superheroes, so I feel like I could easily smash those two things together and 1,000% mentor anyone in costuming, superheroes, ethics, pretty much anything like that. So absolutely, I
Awesome.
would.
Um, so when the show ended, obviously you guys did all the Comic Cons,
Mhm.
and that is something that you have continued to do to this day.
Sure.
And having looked at your Facebook, and after me saying to you last night, you have actually met some very famous people from doing that, one of which was Paul Charles,
Yeah,
aka the
absolutely.
Gay Comic Book Geek. What was it like for you meeting these people, or who was like the most famous person that you met
Whew.
since then that you've just kind of like, oh my God, I'm meeting this person and they're kind of like famous, you know?
Right. It happens weirdly a lot because there's a really weird mix of people that go to the conventions.
Mhm.
So one of my favorites is I love RuPaul's Drag Race. It's one of my favorite shows, right? And so I got to meet RuPaul at Stan Lee's Kamikaze Con. And yeah, we were just hanging out because he was friends with somebody else that I like that was he's actually friends with Fat Mama, right? So she's like, "Yeah, come meet him, he's great." And I was like, "What?" We're just kind of hanging out with RuPaul, and I'm like, "This is so weird." But then like as a cosplayer guy, right? That's what I mostly go to comic book conventions now as, because I don't go as Parthenon anymore because
Mhm.
it's, you know what I mean? So I dressed up as kind of a sexy version of a Power Ranger, Red Ranger. And so I was Red Ranger and I made a couple of my friends be the other ones. But we were at the bar at Dragon Con and the actual Red Ranger comes walking up. And I was like, what?
Which
Right. And so
which
I got to
one?
talk to him, and we sat there and chatted for a little bit, and he took a picture on his phone to send to his wife. So I was like, hilarious.
The
Hilarious.
original one?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yep, because he was there, and the Blue Ranger was actually there as well.
Oh, David,
Yost?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
We
I didn't
the
get to see him, though. I was so kind of disappointed, but I'm like,
Power
ah,
Rangers that I was talking about, we had one of the Mystic Force Rangers,
oh, nice.
and we had the guy that I thought was great, but he never really got that big of a push.
Hmm.
Rocky. So he was the one who took over from Jason, so he was the second Red Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I think his name is Steven.
Yep.
And I remember, like, we knew that those people were there at that Comic Con, and I remember walking past them to try and get to James Masses, and the Mystic Force Ranger took one look at me and just kind of was like, because he seen me in my costume, and I'm like, hi.
You're like, hey.
Like, I honestly wanted to go up to him and say, look, dude, I know I look weird, but you're going to see a lot weirder today. So,
Right. You'd be like,
you
get
know,
you.
um,
Absolutely. So,
and,
yeah,
and
so
like,
it's like people you run into people all the time. So, like, it's kind of
definitely,
fun. It's
definitely.
all about how you interact with them too. Like, because you have to be like, hey, that's about it. Like, I know a lot of the drag race people as well. Because like
Mhm.
one of my friends was on Drag Race that lives here in Orlando. So I went to Comic Con, and so I got to meet some of the other Drag Race people because they all went for Comic Con as well. So like, it was all the nerdy drag queens. So that was even better for me because I'm like, yes, your cosplay is fantastic. Which was kind of fun.
So I have to ask, what is one of the big things that you got off of the show? Like, what was something that opened opportunities? Like, what opportunities did the show open for you? Kind of
Sure.
like the same question with the cosplay earlier on. So,
Yeah, absolutely. The show is interesting because as soon as it started airing, it just became more interesting about how many people know you,
hmm
right? So it's a weird thing because people feel like they know you, but you don't really know them. But they treat you like your best friend because you're like, oh yeah, well, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, ah. So it was kind of always fun. But like the gay media was actually super really great about it. So I did like a lot of weird interviews and for that kind of thing where I think I got a lot more out of it than most of the heroes. So, and it's interesting because people to this day still ask me to do stuff. Like I just hosted another thing as Parthenon like a little bit ago. And like how you were saying, I met Paul Charles. Like we hosted a superhero swimsuit competition. So like it's weird how often it still comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I don't know because like I think it's made it more attainable. So like I think people always ask me like, how did you get on TV? And I'm like, I asked to be on TV. That was it. Literally, I tried out for it, and that was pretty much about it.
Awesome.
That's it, right? So it's kind of like one of those things. Like I think people have this weird impression that it is like elite to do it. You know what I mean? But I don't think that's true. Because honestly, I think anybody can do it if they want to be. So like,
I think it solely depends. Like a lot of people say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
absolutely,
Which a lot of that does pertain, but it also depends where you are in the world.
sure,
Like I know people who are currently trying to make it as actors and actresses over here in the UK, and it is very, very difficult.
right,
Very difficult.
yeah,
Especially like where I live. If I wanted a job in journalism,
hmm
I would literally need to move to London, and I'm in Scotland, so I'm having to literally uproot my entire life
right,
to do that.
sure,
Which, if you've priced like living on your own in London, you'll know that it's just not affordable. You have to have like 5 jobs
right,
to support yourself because
absolutely,
London is not cheap.
yeah,
Um, if anything, I'd say it's the most expensive place in the entire world. Um,
I would believe that.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally think so. I always tell people this too.
mhm,
If you are wanting to do something on TV, I say do live theater. So like
definitely.
a lot of people, almost all of the heroes, by the way, on the show had some sort of public speaking background or some sort of theatery things. Most of us were not actors by any means,
Mhm.
right? But like we had done things where we're comfortable in front of a camera and comfortable in front of like an audience and stuff like that. So I think that is my number one thing. Start there. If you like it and you're comfortable with that, then go further into it.
The only person, like reflecting on what you've just said there, the only person that I felt didn't have that kind of comfortableness with being on camera, but you've seen it develop throughout the entire
Right.
season, was actually the diffuser.
Right?
You know,
He's
'cause
actually interesting.
it watching the show like in the first couple of episodes, like you know he's aware of the camera
Right.
some of the times. And I remember like when I was in college doing media studies, I remember having a camera thrust in my face half the time. And
Right.
at first I was very conscious of it being there.
hmm
And eventually I just got to the point where I was like, I don't care. You know, film me
Right.
if you want. You know, just give me a dressing room off to the side and a big fancy mirror and I'll be happy. Um,
The diffuser was interesting because he did a lot of presentations for his job because he was a police officer. So
uh-huh.
he was comfortable doing that kind of stuff. Um, he became much more comfortable in front of the camera. And then afterwards, he really like blossomed with it because
Yeah.
he took it and then by going to so many Comic Cons and Wizard Cons and everything like that, he began to know the people that ran the conventions. And the convention people are like, come and host things. And so then he would come and host things for them. So then it kind of transitioned from away from a superhero to being like more of a kind of a public figure for him, which is great. Like I think it's wonderful, and he did a great job transitioning for it.
Yeah. The one person that I could say that you could tell had no problem being in front of a camera, like was a definite performer,
hmm
was John. You know,
Well, of course,
and that's simply because of his background in the circus and such like. So, you know, you
thousand
know that
percent.
he's so comfortable in front of a camera, he doesn't even notice it anymore. He's just like, psh, you know, camera. Psh.
He's great with that. He's great in the crowd, like because that's
He
his thing. Is
definitely
he's a street
is.
So literally, he's like, "Hey, come watch me. Come do this." And he's like, "Whoa." Hmm.
Yeah. One of the scenes, like, I don't know whether you were still on the show at that point, but there's one particular scene where you guys are in the lair
Hmm.
and um, John just says, right, okay, guys, watch this. And he starts juggling with oranges. And I just thought, that is so great. You know,
He would constantly do that. Actually, like we had
really.
contests. Oh yeah, like he would do backflips for the hell of it. Like
Hmm.
the cameras wouldn't even be on. He's like, "Yay!" Like we were in the Great America, like Six Flags, not Great
Uh-huh,
America, Six Flags, Magic Mountain, I think it was.
uh-huh.
And like he was just performing for the people that were like normally just kind of standing there. And he's like, "Hey, watch this!" And he would just do backflips off of stuff. And I was like, "Cheers," because like I can do balancing, so like I can do hand balancing, like objects, and it can be pretty heavy, and I can still pretty much do it. And so he would do his little thing, and I'd be like, da, 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 because at one point, you know, we had like our beds, right? Because they were like crazy looking beds. So I took apart mine and I was literally hand balancing the headboard by itself, like because you can put it in your hand and like one leg was here and the other leg was kind of up in the air, and I was like do 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 with the whole entire headboard. Yeah, it
Awesome.
was fun. We were just kind of we had a lot of downtime, let me put it that way. So we got super bored because literally the only thing to do in there was play ping pong. We had a ping pong table. That was it. So we've invented our own games. Like Limelight and I would go ballroom dancing around the lair all the time. So it was ridiculous. We would ice skate in socks because it was wooden floors, and so we just put socks on and ice skate around. It was fun. Mhm.
One thing I have to do, I do have to ask, and this is the last question. I promise you it's the last question on the show.
Okay.
Yeah, like five after that, you know.
I know.
Melanie was posted as being very like hygienic when it came to the upkeep of the lair. Was that something specifically written for the character that Melanie was following, or was it something that she actually is?
She is that way. Because you know what? She was like the mom of the group. Because she was just like, she's always like, tidying up and cleaning things and do. Yeah. So she was totally, that's her. She's just great.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just going to quickly pause. So we'll be right back, guys. Okay. So now that the show is finished and the fandom is kind of starting to die down and you're back to doing what Dan normally does, what is it? What are some of the kind of things that you're doing now?
Sure. So my current job is I'm still a college professor. So I
Hmm.
teach computer programming. So that is my number one goal, and it's what I do. Um, in the meantime, I still really making costumes all the time. So I just finally started posting them on Instagram because somebody's like, "Why do you not have an Instagram?" And I'm like, "Why do I not have an Instagram?"
I think
So
it
you
might
find me
be
on there as well, right?
me.
So I make a lot of different stuff, and I'm trying to go to more conventions because it's truly what I love. So even though it's not like me as Parthenon going to the convention, I've been going to conventions since I was like 12. My first one was like a Star Trek convention in Chicago, so it was kind of fun where I dressed up in my little like Star Trek uniform and I made a tricorder out of a block of wood. So it's kind of one of those things. But that's kind of what I'm doing, and it's very nice. I spend most of my time just kind of enjoying life. It's kind of nice.
Awesome.
Love it. Yeah,
So my last question for you before we do the Passover, where you can get the opportunity to tell us where we can follow you on social media,
sure.
um, would be what advice would you give to anybody who is either looking to cosplay or looking to get into the entertainment industry or even looking to create their own kind of superhero? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Sure. I'll start at the beginning. So, people that are getting into cosplay, I would say start shopping at thrift stores. That is really the easiest thing to do. Most people have a hard time with it, but if you go to the thrift shop, you have to start thinking of what something could be. I think that's the mindset you have to switch into. It's like, what can I do with this object and what could it be? Like, sure, it's a dome and it has a little octopus in it, but could it be the start of a medallion for the Doctor Strange eye? Of course it could, right? But it's what it possibilities of it. And I think a lot of people assume that it costs a lot of money to start cosplaying, which it really doesn't, right? So
Hey, depends what you're
right,
doing.
it's what you're doing. But most of my costumes that I make never are over $40. They just aren't. Because like I find weird stuff where I make it. I'm super crafty, so anytime like I find something, I just put it in a box. Like, if I find something on sale, I'll get it, I'll stick it in a box. Why? I have no idea. I'll eventually come back to it. Because one of my favorite quotes is, to invent, you need imagination and a big pile of junk. So I got the imagination, so I need like the stuff. So my house, I treat it kind of like as a workshop. So it's full of just costume pieces that are waiting to be made. So it's kind of fun. So cosplaying, I would say start at the thrift stores, just jump in. Even if your first cosplay is weird, that's okay. You know what? As long as you are really enjoying the fandom of it, who cares what it looks like? I think that's another big thing too. Because a lot of people think that if they go to a convention and somebody doesn't know who they are, or if they go to the convention and nobody wants their picture, then they failed as a cosplayer. But that's not really the point of it, right? The point of a cosplayer is you love something so much that you want to be it. So do it. Just jump in, dive in, and you're good to go.
Funny story on the pictures one,
Absolutely.
and I'll put this in really, really quickly. My
Sure.
first year as Harley Quinn, I literally could not take 20 sets without 50 odd people wanting my picture.
Sure.
My second year as Harley Quinn, my second year as Poison Ivy, I hardly ever got my picture taken, and I was so thankful for it because it allowed me to do other things.
Right?
You know?
Ex-
So I was like, phew, nobody wants my picture, thank God. You
Right.
know?
Okay, that's great. But yeah, absolutely. To
So,
break into entertainment, right?
yes.
Honestly, what I would do is there's a lot of different websites out there, especially for reality TV shows. One of them is called Reality Wanted.
Hmm.
They send a lot of different stuff. It's like an email blast every day. Because of that one, I actually made it on Let's Make a Deal, the game show with Wayne Brady. So same type of thing. Like they sent out a call searching for comic book lovers, superheroes, and supervillains. So I'm like, why, hello. So I sent back my thing, and I went, hi, I'm Parthenon. I tried out for the Evil League of Evil with Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. So actually, like, yeah, I made like a whole entire music video for it. And if you look, my villain name is on the DVD for Dr. Horrible's blog. So it's kind of nice.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I love it. Because I was salvaging the sinister sock. So I had a sock puppet and I was a time-traveling inventor. And I sent him a picture of my comic book room, of me in my comic book room. Because I have a whole wall of nothing but comic books. So they called me back the next day, and I was chatting with the people, and then I was in my comic book room. And then literally he's one of the low-level producers. And he's like, I'm going to go get my boss. Wait right here for a minute. So I was like, okay. So the new person comes on there, and she goes, hi. And I'm like, hi. And she goes, I know you. And I'm like, you know me? And she goes, are you Parthenon? And I was like, what? This was like last year. So like maybe in December. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I cast you on your show. She was the casting producer for the original show. And I was like, what? And now she works at Let's Make a Deal. And I was like, well, this is great. So I ended up on Let's Make a Deal, weirdly, on the nerdy episode with Stanley again. So Stanley was on the same episode of the game show I was on. And I was like, so ridiculous. Yeah. But everything pops up there. Like something else popped up, and they were searching for cosplayers. So I'm like, I'm a cosplayer. So I auditioned for another TV show, and it was all about making cosplayer stuff. So it's kind of like Project Runway, but for cosplay. And it's actually coming out on the show. I didn't make it on it, but I got the rejection email that said try out for season 2. And I'm like, I guess I'm doomed for season 2 of stuff. But you know, because
Well,
I only audition for stuff that I truly love, by the way. That's my other thing. Like, I don't blanket just to be on TV. Like, that's not what I want. I only go for things that are like nerdy, costumey, superhero. And I'm like, yes, count me in. So that's my kind of fun passion. So for that, follow it because there's casting calls all the time, but only go for things that you're passionate about is what I would say for that one.
you'll be glad to know that you're on the specialized season for this one, so
Yeah.
that's really good. So any resounding advice you give to anybody who's just looking for that kind of advice?
For which part?
Just any kind of general advice that you would give to somebody.
I always tell people to follow what they love. That is really about it. It has really helped me since I was a kid because what I wanted to do is I grew up in Chicago, Indiana, but really close to Chicago, Illinois. But I always wanted to work for Disney. So you know what? So I made sure that I came down and worked over Disney. I found that I loved it, so I moved to Orlando. I followed my passion, right? So then I knew that I really liked making costumes, so I did that. And if long as you are true to who you are and doing what you love, you'll be happy in life. Really, that's what it comes down to. Like, I couldn't be more content, like, with how I am right now. Like, everything is great. Even if it's not great, it'll be great tomorrow. And if, as long as you kind of have the positive outlook on it, I think you really can't go wrong in life.
Awesome. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say to the viewers watching at home, if you're not watching this on iGame, go check out iGame and see what else we have on offer. We have the TV Drop, the MERP episodes, the weekly podcast. Go check out our shows, guys, because we're always uploading content. We will also, hopefully by this point, have our Dragonlance Tabletop Edition, which is introduced by the one and only, oh crap, Morgan Freeman.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So go check out all the stuff that we've got going, guys. We've even got cosplayers like from the NUK bunch. Go see what they're up to. And yeah, but before I pass over to Dan, I should say, leave us a comment down in the comment section. I think it's like, do you see it down, Dan? It's like down here.
It's probably like here-ish. Maybe a little bit lower. Maybe like between these fingers.
Yeah, somewhere like between here. Go leave
Or
us
click
a
this
comment.
button. Or maybe that button. I don't know.
Go leave us a comment, and myself or Dan will try and answer any questions that you have. Also, give us a big thumbs up because we like our thumbs. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content, whether it be gaming, because I do some gaming sometimes, whether it be with interviews with cosplayers or even more interviews with the stars of reality TV. So, Dan, where can we get a hold of you if we have any further questions where we maybe didn't get the chance to put them in here? So, like, where can we follow you on social media?
Yeah, most social medias, I go by Dan as Creative, so it's DANISCRE, the number 8 TVE, because you can't be creative and spell it normal, because that's not a thing. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, I'm Parthenon on there. So if you just look up Parthenon superhero, pop right up. You see my little picture. That is my page. I check it all the time. Sometimes I post new content on it. Sometimes I post cosplay pictures on it. But mostly that's where I am. So, yeah.
And don't worry, guys, if you didn't catch any of what Dan just said there will be links to it in the description down below. So go check them out and please go follow them. Otherwise, I want to thank Dan for taking the time out and filming this interview. And I'll be back with another one really soon.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
And bye, guys.
Bye.